Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here today. My name's Ramona Gonczol, and I'm an associate professor of Romanian language at UCL and one of the main organizers of the event. I'll start by presenting the order of the day. So we start with Professor Paola Lettieri, who's the UCL's Vice Provost for Strategy, who will open the event. Thank you, Paola, for accepting that. Followed by presentations from UCL teaching staff about the 2 outreach projects we have completed, working with heritage home and community language speakers in 3 secondary schools over the past 4 years. We will then hear from Ella Teski, Head of Inclusion at one of the partner schools in both projects, as well as from Liz Threadgold from Connah's Secondary School in Wales, our first partner school. We'll also hear from 2 participating students to whom we'll show a lot of support. And then after comfort break and before lunch, we'll hear from our esteemed specialist in multilingualism and heritage home and community languages, Sophia Amin, specialist lead in education for multilingualism and assistant head teacher, Dr. Sabine Little, senior lecturer in language education at University of Sheffield, Dr. Sophie Liggins, ESRC postdoctoral fellow at University of Essex, and a teacher in Walthamstow Secondary School, Professor Vicky McLeroy, Professor of Language and Literacy, Head of the MA Children's Literature Program and Head of the Center for Languages, Cultures and Learning at Goldsmith. After lunch, which will be in the hallway, we'll direct you to the right place. We move on to a more interactive and practical part of the day with group discussions and an open session for Q&A and contributions from you all. We aim to have closing remarks around 3:30, and then we can stay and mingle a bit more over cake and coffee. I'd just like to mention the main aims of today's event, which are to highlight the importance of supporting home heritage and community languages, as well as building a case for expanding the offer of GCSE community language exams, to form collaborations with groups and associations that have a lot of expertise in such areas, such as the National Consortium for Language Education or the Association for Language Learning, in order to add new languages to their activities, which would be a very highly desirable outcome. Also, to create avenues for new projects that would reach to many schools and benefit home, heritage, and community language speakers all over the country. We are recording the event so we can allow other people who couldn't come today to see it retrospectively and hopefully extend the network. I will now let Professor Lettieri open the event. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity of actually meeting you, even if so briefly this morning. First of all, to welcome you to UCL and to UCL East. So I'm Vice Provost Strategy, as introduced, but also I regard myself as the mama of UCL East. And this is really because I was the person that 10 years ago began the journey with UCL of actually developing the academic strategy, really bringing all the academics together at UCL to make this campus happen in the way that it is. So a couple of words about UCL. I'm sure you're all familiar with us, but we are what we say, how we say, the London Global University. We're very proud of being the home of over 50,000 students, and I will not even attempt to say how many hundreds of different languages, in fact, our students can speak altogether, and 16,000 staff, and that goes as well in terms of how many different languages and heritage actually we bring together at UCL. I promise Celine I will try and speak with my best Italian accent just for this occasion. I've been in London for 30 years. I'm very proud when my children say, "Mama, you still haven't lost your accent." Never. I think it's actually rather important. And I totally believe when colleagues say that is really lovely. I hope it is, because I can't change it. So UCL East opened a couple of years ago, so we're really new. Landing, we didn't want to land on the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park and in Newham, but we wanted to arrive as basically a friendly neighbor in this part of London, where we hope that will contribute to the social and economic flourishing of Newham and all the other Olympic boroughs. So with Celine and colleagues, we did a lot of work in the last 5 years or so to connect and work with the local schools, but also with local organizations and network to basically become a friend, real neighbor, even before our buildings were ready to open. And the whole academic vision that we developed for UCL East was to be a different campus where academics and students are capable of breaking down the boundaries between disciplines. We've got 8 of the 11 faculties of UCL being represented here through different entities that really are a mix of academics from different disciplines that have come to really work together towards addressing some of the global challenges that we can all name today, from climate change to equity and justice. Recognizing that the students that graduate from universities today and tomorrow, they've got to be able to think about a problem from multiple perspectives. There isn't just one single problem that can be addressed really with simply one set of skills. It requires a much bigger and broader mind these days. So UCL East is different, and it's basically pioneering for UCL a different way of working, whether you are a student, an academic staff, or professional service staff. When we talk about breaking down the boundaries, that obviously wants to go beyond just the academic discipline. It's also about how we as people actually work and relate with each other. So the design of the building wanted to be transparent and porous, really to get people to be together in a different way. And that goes really, I think, a long way with what you are here today to discuss. You know, there are differences in the way we are, and first of all, our own heritage, how that enriches the way we speak or we approach and or we think about a problem. And at UCL, I'm glad to say, and that's why I've stayed for 30 years, that there is a wonderful, warm community, regardless of where you're coming from. Actually, you know, the richness of what you can bring is absolutely valued. I was just saying to Selena a moment ago, very proud as a mom, my daughter has done her Italian GCSE. She wasn't actually pushed by me at all. I was surprised when she said that she wanted to do it. The school wasn't offering it, but she prepared for it and she passed it with a 9. And that because she felt as a child whose mom is Italian, that she wanted to basically improve the language and understanding what Italian means beyond, obviously, you know, the conversational Italian that we have at home, because she felt that that was basically formalizing the fact that she is 50% Italian and being very proud of that 50%. So I think the subject of your conversation today is really very, very important. And I remember even my dad, when he was headmaster of a vocational school in Rome, on the outskirts of Rome. This was a vocational school specializing in informatics. We're talking about now probably 40 years ago, when immigration was already quite a thing in Rome, probably not as big as it is today. And my dad created a program, an after-school program, because the number of children that they were getting at the time from Albania or even from Africa was becoming substantial. And he was worried that basically to feel that they belonged, then they needed to be taught the language that basically they would have spoken at home. He was himself a Napolitan originally, and obviously Napoli and Roma are not that far away geographically, but 40 years ago, differences were still felt. And so he kind of felt that regardless of whether you're coming from a couple of hundreds of kilometers away or a different country, you are actually thinking of the same problem, belonging. And so what you are actually discussing today is really close to my heart. And I'm glad that you're having this conversation. Only sorry I can't be with you, but thank you for the opportunity of welcoming you to UCL and UCL East. Thank you.
Hello again. I just want to mention that we have 2 ambassadors here from Bulgaria for the Bulgarian embassy and the Kosovo embassy. Would you like to say hello to us, or tell us why you?
Good morning, everyone. Well, first of all, thank you for this great invitation. And My special thanks go to the school on Slavonic and Eastern European languages. It's so important to preserve, as you call them, heritage and home languages. As a representative of embassies here, for us it's also very important to have our languages recognized within the British educational system. For Bulgaria, for instance, as far as I know, at the beginning of the 90s, there was an exam on A-level for all, or practically most of the Eastern European languages, and then this process stopped. In the United Kingdom, we have the fifth largest community, about 500,000, and more than 70 Bulgarian schools. Some of them, most of them are also supported by the Bulgarian government through different programs. And the number of schools is going up, which is very important from the point of view of our main priority to keep this relationship of the young peoples that are born here with their country of origin, to know the language of their parents, grandparents, and at the same time, most of them spend their summer in Bulgaria. They need to communicate with their relatives in my country. We tried probably 7-8 years ago with a petition, again, to restart this process, unfortunately, without any success. Some of the experts that have been working in this area told me that the problem might be financial, because those committees or commissions that are responsible for the exams have to be paid, of course, and the government doesn't support this kind of activities. But if it's the problem, we can resolve it. There are some different ways to resolve it. What we need at the end, and we would appreciate the contribution of the school to find some practical advice, how to proceed, what are the right steps in order to get recognition of the languages, not only Bulgarian, but also the others. And we have a similar program in the United States, where this process is quite decentralized. You have to work state by state. They have the program named Seal of Literacy. And when you get a recognition, then of course the language is recognized in the relevant educational system. But in that particular case, we have two universities in Bulgaria, Sofia University and Plovdiv University, that could organize exams, and the result of those exams are recognized by those states in the US. We can do something similar with the UK. But I believe that it could be our joint achievement if the school on Slavonic and Eastern European languages and the respective embassies manage to achieve at the end the recognition of the languages. And this is one particular area where I see the potential for cooperation. And at the end, I would like to thank also our lecturer here, Madame Velkova. She has been so active, energetic. And you know that personality matters at the end. And we have the interest among students here in Bulgarian language is thanks to her as well. And I hope that we will manage to keep her as a professor at the school. And now I'll give the floor to my daughter. Again, if you manage to come up with some practical advice how to proceed further on, it will be highly appreciated. Thank you.
Good morning to everybody, and I must say I'm delighted to be here to take part in this conference. And I commend the UCL for making all efforts to keep those languages sort of and attract new people to learn. It brings diversity and knowledge. Albanian languages, I'm not an expert. I speak fluently, and it's my first language, but it's a language that stretches back to ancient time. And it's very important that over centuries it was sometimes difficult, but it survived as a language. And I'm so proud of it that nowadays, thanks to very good, dedicated people like Paola, this language continues to be very attractive for the new generations. There is a community in the United Kingdom, as Ambassador pointed out, that lives here, Bulgarian, Albanian, and others. And it is very important that we manage to somehow bring it to formally sort of educating new people. rather than keeping on the street and sort of learning language in a very bad way. In this sort of matter, I think is very important that if you see any way that the embassies can contribute to the cause that will help you to maintain and continue those courses, we are very welcome to those. And it's not only Embassy of Republic of Kosovo, it's the Embassy of Albania too, which unfortunately today couldn't attend the gathering. I think by educating people various languages will bring to them diversity and culture and socializing in between each other. And in all aspects, is positive attitude that we should not let go that easy. I thank you all for participating. Feel free to contact Embassy if you think that we can help you anything. Thank you and have a good day.
We will now proceed to present our project. So I'll do a general introduction and I'll start by inviting Liz Threadgold to join me, please. Liz Threadgold is coordinator of EAL there, yeah, at Connah Secondary School in Wales. And I'll let you tell the story of how we met and so on and how we started the first project.
Thank you, Barda. Ramona and Dobre. So I'm actually a French teacher, I'm a modern language teacher from North Wales. I've always worked in the North Wales area. And 5 years ago, I moved to my current school, Connah High School, which has always been traditionally a white British area. 20 years ago, we maybe had 1 or 2 Polish students in our schools. But over the last 10 years and really the last 5 years, there's been a massive influx of people that come to our area for economic migrants because we've got some large factories that employ predominantly Eastern European workers. So when I arrived at the school, we have EAL support from the local county, but the then head teacher who worked at our school was quite visionary, and she said, well, we need somebody who's in school all the time. Giving these children 1 hour support a week isn't enough. We are a medium-sized school. There are just under 1,100 pupils, but we've got 15% of EAL learners with 20 different languages, which for our area is really, really unusual. And aspiration has traditionally been very low amongst lots of our learners, and we wanted to change that. So traditionally, they would arrive in year 8 or year 9, largely from Romania, Bulgaria, but we've got a really wide spread of Eastern European families. They would bumble their way through school a bit, speak Romanian, Bulgarian at break time amongst themselves, but there was no encouragement of them taking pride in their heritage and in their language. So I was tasked with finding some qualifications because lots of them left school maybe with 1 or 2 GCSEs at very low grades. And then they left school and they went to work in the local chicken factory or for Uber Eats. And that was it. And their families didn't have very high aspirations either because they'd come to North Wales and were having a far better life in North Wales than they'd had at home. A large proportion of our Romanian and Bulgarian learners have Roma heritage. They very often lived in 2 or 3 different European countries. So their roots are a bit vague for them. They don't always feel like they belong in one particular area, and we wanted to really make them feel that they belonged with us. And I wanted to start by making them feel really proud of their heritage and realizing that being bilingual or multilingual is a superpower and so important, and that they shouldn't be ashamed of their language and of their roots. So I started doing a bit of Google work. Google is amazing. I love Google. To find out where we could get some GCSEs. And to my absolute horror, there was nothing. And I was really taken aback by this. I couldn't understand why. So I did a bit more Googling and I started with, where can I study Romanian in the UK? Because I thought if I start there, I might find something. And lo and behold, UCL website popped up and I found Ramona's email. So I fired out an email thinking, they'll be very important and very busy and they'll probably go to the bottom of somebody's inbox. And I think within 48 hours, if not sooner, Ramona had replied to me. Well, that started our collaboration, I think in 2021. And what we wanted to do was try and offer some kind of school leaving certificate that just proved that these children had literacy in their home language, so that when they've got very sparse CVs and very sparse records of passing exams, they could at least go to an employer or to college and say, but I can read and write and speak Romanian or Bulgarian or Ukrainian. So that's where it started. We had a couple of online meetings, didn't we? And we based it on an entry-level English type exam. So with a basic speaking exam and a little writing exam. And that's where it's taken off. So then we were really, really fortunate that last academic year, Danny and Ramona offered online sessions. We had 6 online sessions, and we also met up with Parkview School and Buxton,
Another one.
which was brilliant because the children that I had in my classes thought that they were the only ones, the only Bulgarians, the only Romanians in the UK. They didn't realise there was a whole community out there. So they really enjoyed that. And last year we came to UCL for a conference, which they really enjoyed. Most of them had never been to London before. Some of them had never been on a train in the UK before. And we were really looked after. The long-term effect of this is that now our learners leave school not only with GCSEs, we also look at wider qualifications such as Prince's Trust, which has become King's Trust, which is really accessible and isn't reliant on them having to actually pass an exam. But they almost all go on to our tertiary college. They are now staying in education and not just leaving and going straight to the chicken factory. So I think that's a real achievement. And we have got learners who are looking further and saying, well, actually, I want to be a counsellor, or I want to work with children, or I want to go and do some A-levels or actually access university. So I think that has been great. I think it's an absolute travesty that we don't have Bulgarian, Romanian and other heritage language GCSEs, and we really need to work and push for that because these children really deserve that chance. Why should they be excluded from the same opportunities as others because English isn't their first language? So I'm not going to waffle too long, but thank you very much for inviting me here today. We really hope that this programme will continue, and I'm certainly prepared to work hard to try and further the cause of getting these GCSEs and further qualifications. Thank you very much.
So we first work on the PEEL project, which stands for Proficiency in East European Languages, with Connah scheme in Wales, covering only Romanian and Bulgarian without any funding for 2 years, knowing it is a good idea. We offered informal tests like Liz described, written and oral, and a diploma of participation to all students. Students welcomed the opportunity and showed pride in their heritage. We even received the Widening Participation runner-up nomination for it, but only when we met Celine West, who used to be there, from UCL East Widening Participation Office, did we manage to get some funding. We then quickly expanded the project, including 3 schools and Ukrainian and Albanian languages. Given that the 3 schools were far from each other, the only way to offer the sessions was online. It was hard work with basically 3 classes online on 3 screens. We plowed through as we could see the enthusiasm of the pupils and how willing they were to improve their home language and culture. We also noticed quite clearly that they were flattered and surprised that their heritage background gets so much attention from a university. Several said, no one pays much attention to our language or culture or background, and the feedback was positive as well. This led us to realize that the next project had to go beyond linguistic and cultural information. So we applied for funding for the RAP project, Raising Aspirations in Heritage Speakers of Romanian, Bulgarian and Albanian. Being successful, this allowed us to have physical meetings with the students. We also decided to work only with 1 school simply because of lack of time and logistics. Parkview was the obvious choice. All 3 sessions, each 3 hours long, were held at UCL Bloomsbury campus. For the students to be there physically was important. We broke the stereotype of universities being high up places hard to get to. They were there for 9 full hours over 2 terms. They also heard from current UCL students about their studies and university experience. The RAP project was also met with enthusiasm by the students. My colleagues will talk about each project in a minute. On session 2 of the RAP project, we were joined by Daniela Mittelstadt, who met a cohort of Brazilian Portuguese students, and on session 3, we were joined by Mazal Waknin, who met a cohort of Latin American Spanish students. The addition of Spanish and Portuguese, despite the existence of GCSEs, was due to the fact that Parkview wanted them to benefit as well from the RAP project, as many of them come from low-educated and economically challenged families, and with no one who attended university. This shows that the RAP project has a wider scope, even for more established communities. Apart from this work with schools, I run a project with UCL students who are heritage speakers entitled Searching for Romanian Heritage in London Museums. This is also a successful initiative aimed at students of Romanian background who choose to do a full degree in Romanian. We already visited the Migration Museum. I don't know if there's someone here from the Migration Museum that was on the list, but maybe they haven't arrived yet. And we'll continue with the Horniman Museum, the V&A, Tate Modern, maybe even the British Museum. This project equips students with confidence, self-respect, and practical skills on a topic that is close to their heart, emotional and sometimes even painful, as it counteracts preconceptions and stereotypes, even prejudices against their heritage. Mirela also runs a course for adult heritage speakers of Albanian, and she will tell you more about this in a minute. SSEES, School of Slavonic and East European Studies, which is part of UCL, is the best place to do such projects, as we offer degrees in 9 East European languages with a further 8 as short courses. So that's a total of 17 languages from East, Southeast, and the Baltic region, plus Russian. What we learned from running these practical projects: teenagers do not attend community schools. We have to go to them. The profile of the home heritage and community language speaker is very vast or varied. Age is important, status is important, time when they emigrated versus if they were born here is important. Length of time spent in home or intermediary countries makes a difference. Many are born outside their parent country and move to the UK. Schools are busy. That's another lesson. We quickly learned we work with schools when they tell us they can and not when it suits us. That was a great decision, as we had a smooth collaboration throughout. Yes, Ella. Languages, we covered a little of knowledge, and students were puzzled by the sudden attention. Often their model is one of the parents. Therefore, raising their aspirations and pride for their heritage is more important than fixing the language and culture issues. Some want to sound native British at the cost of their heritage language or accent. They had no idea their heritage languages are needed. They don't know each other, even inside the same school. They need our help with GCSEs, future aspirations, teaching them to be active citizens and expect social justice and celebrate their multilingualism. So, fostering collaboration and collective action between schools, parents, universities, community schools, local councils, cultural centers, and embassies, awarding bodies, policymakers, all party parliamentary groups, museums, and libraries will hopefully lead to these languages receiving the status and importance they deserve as representatives of large and growing new communities in the UK. I will now invite my colleague Yordanka Velkova to speak about our first project, PO.
Teacher voice, so maybe.
No, you
Hello, everyone, and welcome here. It gives me great pleasure to see that many of you showed interest in our event, and I assume everyone is supporting heritage speakers and heritage languages. Out of curiosity, because we are talking a lot about heritage languages today, how many of you are speakers of Bulgarian? Speakers? And His Excellency as well? Of course. And how many of you are speakers of Romanian? Okay, Albanian? Portuguese? Spanish? Okay, lovely. So I will be talking to you through the first project that we call PO, Proficiency in East European Language. Yes, I can. So about our first project here, which is we stand for Proficiency in East European languages. That's the name of the project. You heard a lot already about the beginning, how it all began, when Liz reached out to Ramona, and then Ramona contacted me, and I was thinking, okay, so Bulgaria and Romania are not walking side by side when it comes just to walking through the EU and Schengen, but walking together, or football, yes, but also when it comes to supporting heritage projects and the project that support heritage languages and students. So the initiative began in 2021 with Connah's key high school in Wales, when over 30 students took part in the project, which means that almost every student in there from year 11 was involved. And then in 2022, we were recognized with this lovely award, so which gave us more confidence that we need to apply for a funding so that the project gains its official status to become a project. Because at the very beginning, as Ramona mentioned, it was just a volunteer initiative. So this is how it all began. In 2023, we started, alongside Bulgarian and Ukrainian, and Romanian, we included Ukrainian and started the PO project. So let's start peeling. And as I already told you, PO stands for Proficiency in East European Languages, and it is our initiative to support heritage languages and speakers of Bulgarian, Romanian, and Ukrainian who study at British schools. You already know that it is in a partnership with two schools, one in Wales and two in London. We have the lovely colleagues from Parkview today here, and you will hear more about students' insights from the project later. About our goals, let me walk you through the main goals that we set when we established the PIL project. First of all, we are very much committed to maintaining, preserving, and celebrating heritage languages, which I believe everyone in this room must be, because you are here today celebrating heritage languages with us. And secondly, in our focus is to build a very strong and supportive community of heritage speakers, of their teachers, between families, schools, universities, so that we can bridge this gap between universities and schools. And this allows us to raise the visibility of heritage languages and to make students feel more valued, that they are coming of a multilingual background. And many of our students, they were really not just speakers of two languages, but of more than two languages. So bearers of more than two cultures even. We very much believe that by valuing students' heritage languages, we help them gain more confidence, and we spark more motivation, not just to learn languages, but to learn everything else too. And the big goal was to make the case for the GCSE exams, and our struggle to gain recognition for GCSE, for Bulgarian, Romanian, and Ukrainian. I know that Albanian also doesn't have GCSEs, but the first part of the project included just Bulgarian, Romanian, and Ukrainian. It proved that evidence shows, I would rather say, that heritage projects, heritage language projects, they help students enhance their sense of self, their identity, and also make them aware of the richness of their cultural background, how valued and important they are in our community, which makes the classroom not just more inclusive, but it enriches the educational environment itself as well. And because our students visited UCL and had online in-person sessions later, we managed to really present university, UCL as achievable, accessible, and a place where students can come and study. Because as statistics shows, some of our students, they might be the first generation of holders of a BA or MA degree. So we very much hope that we kind of have our finger in inspiring them to continue with their academic degree. Also, it was very important for us to focus on boosting students' cultural pride, and they felt much more aware of how important their cultural background is in this in this city, especially where diversity really matters and is part of our everyday life. It gave us like an insight and idea to reflect differently on our students, to see them not just bilingual students, but see them as bilingual bridges, because this is what they do every day, I believe. They will share with us probably later. That heritage speakers, being bearers of different languages and different cultures, they navigate between different cultures every day, different languages. They translate and connect ideas, views, perspective. Very often, I guess, translating not just words, but ways of thinking, I believe. So by acknowledging them as cultural bridges, we actually make them builders of understanding across cultures, I believe. About the real content of our project, we included lessons, as Ramona already mentioned, and for those language lessons, we developed bespoke language materials. I will show you in a minute what type of language tasks, for example, we included. And thanks to Liz, who shared generously with us some examples of English exams, the English GCSE, we developed Bulgarian and Romanian versions of those GCSE exams. Very often they say from the examination board, I heard from my contacts with students, with teachers of Bulgarian in the Bulgarian Sunday school, that they say that they were told by the examination board that, oh, we don't have exam, like the exam papers, and it takes time, money, of course, funding to develop them. But now, yes, we have those exams. We managed to develop them in Bulgarian and Romanian. So we have kind of evidence-based data that this case can go further and probably be successful. And when working with our students, it was very important for us to focus on the idea that it is very often about transferring skills and knowledge from one language to another language. So many of our students, they knew how to write an essay, for example, a narrative essay, because you cannot be a student of Bella and not to know. Right? So of course, and then we just had to make them transfer this knowledge, to push them to transfer this knowledge into Bulgarian and Romanian, so they could successfully complete the tasks in the language proficiency tests that we gave them. They received a certificate after that, which I will show you later. These are just examples of the language tasks, and we wanted to include in every task some cultural insights, because students loved that. And in their feedback, this is what they shared, that they loved the fact that grammar tasks, reading comprehension tasks, there was always something about culture and tradition, as you can see from the examples. They are from the Bulgarian example, so just Bulgarian speakers can understand this. The written exam included functional writing and narrative writing, and the oral exam, when we had it with Liz and her students, she was very kind to record the students, so we have this data of very moving audios, very recordings of students, our heritage speakers of Bulgarian and Romanian, who were sharing with us their experience, and sometimes it felt really very moving, very sad, very emotional when we heard how challenging it was for them to end up in another country with limited knowledge in the language. So we were very pleased that they felt free to express themselves in this way. The assessment criteria was also developed in order for us to mark the exams, and our students did really very well. As you can see, the average task result was between 9 and 9.5, and they also received a feedback sheet where types of mistakes and positive aspects, suggestions for improvement were given, and the very big moment when they received the UCL certificate. That was a big moment for us as well, right, Ramona, because we could see the pupils, how happy they were, how pleased they were, and they were asking, so why do I need this certificate? Is it going to help me in the future? This is a UCL certificate. Of course, it will help you in the future. Talking about bridging the gap between schools and university, a special moment was when the students visited UCL, the main pod, and they met our students ambassadors. They also had a tour around the campus, and as you can see, they could take lots of pictures and experience real student, real university life. So about the project outcomes, very important for us to start with. Students now understand, we believe, better that they have the right to have GCSE exams in their GCSE in their heritage language, which represents an important and growing community. As His Excellency mentioned, it is a really rapidly growing community when it comes to Bulgarian speakers, the fifth. And I know that the Romanian is the second. Yeah. Yes, after Polish, I believe. We are a growing community. And also students gain a deeper understanding of the importance of their heritage language in British society. And very importantly, they feel more valued, more confident, more motivated. This is what happens when your heritage language is represented in and respected in the educational system through projects, outreach projects. We very much believe that this also in many ways helped our students improve their general well-being through connection with the culture and those connections that they had with other students, feeling part of a community, not like strangers, weirdos, as Liz said, oh, is it just us who are heritage speakers of Bulgarian or Romanian? And I was so pleased when in the feedback, I read this comment by one of the students that she felt so free to express herself, and that most of all, she felt that she has all the right to make mistakes. She said, I understood that no one is perfect. I said, what a great outcome. That was even not in the goals of our project, but this really felt very emotional when reading through their comments. And our big pain and big goal, the GCSE case, yes? So out of 17 languages, you probably know, A-level languages, A-level is only allowed for Russian and Polish from the East European group. And here, as I already mentioned, advocates for the inclusion of Bulgarian and Romanian, of course, Albanian and all other languages which do not have, which are not recognized yet. So we collected this data that we did the exams, our students did really very well. We have the exam papers, and we hope that this proves the point, evidence-based data, that this case can go further and we could finally have this recognition. His Excellency Tihomir Stoytchev, he already mentioned briefly the history regarding the struggle, the battle around this GCSE recognition, and I was very happy to receive some materials from Mrs. Snežina Mečeva, who is a former director of one of the biggest Bulgarian schools, Ivan Stanchuk, that is in the building of the Bulgarian embassy in London. So she talked me through the history, because she herself, she is the very history of this case. And she said that in the early 90s, there were A-levels, mostly for all Eastern European languages. And she said that her daughter even, she had A-level in Bulgarian in the UK. So we have one living person that proves the point that there were those types of exams allowed. But unfortunately, at that time, A-level in Bulgarian, for example, or Romanian, was not accepted by all UK universities, just by several UK universities. And this excludes Oxford and Cambridge, for example. And then A-levels in East European languages was abolished. So this is how we ended up with, again, this battle to gain this recognition. But a great example is the Polish community effort that they managed to regain their GCSE and A-Level exams. I have no idea how they managed to do that, but we should probably ask them for some kind of successful strategies for advocacy. I hope it's not just money, but maybe something else. So there have been lots of efforts, including petitions, Bulgarian petition, Romanian petition. I double checked with my colleague Mirela that there was a Albanian petition as well, almost relatively at the same time. So in 2017, the Association of Bulgarian Schools Abroad, they submitted a petition to the European Parliament, and in this petition it was requested that the EU ensures schools in all member states offer end of secondary school exams in all of the official languages of the EU. That would be ideal. And then, as I mentioned, a petition Add Romanian to the Modern Language GCSE was also submitted in 2019-2024. The same moment was submitted an Albanian petition, but the answer was no. And very often, reasons for that was low uptake or the fact that it could not be guaranteed that 600 students per year enroll. This is what, no more, yeah, so more. So various reasons for this. So that was about PO and about the proficiency in East European languages. I will hand over to my colleague Mirela, who will tell you more how we developed the idea of raising aspirations.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy as well to see so many participants here and to share with you our second project, where Albanian was also part of this project. So the second project was called Raising Future Aspirations for Heritage Speakers, initially for Romanian, Bulgarian and Albanian heritage speakers in one secondary school in London, which was Park View School. So why we chose this school? Ramona mentioned it a little bit earlier, and I'm sure Ella will talk about it later. But there is an amazing student population which come from different heritage backgrounds, and this was a pool of students that was great for this project. And I mentioned earlier, initially was Romanian, Bulgarian and Albanian languages, but later joined us two other languages, two other guest languages, the Portuguese and the Spanish. So what were the aims of this project? Because it came after Peel that Dani spoke about. Now we wanted to take it a step further, not just speak about their language and their identity and their culture, but to raise also their aspirations. So to make the students see that higher education is accessible to them, so they could make appropriate career paths. They could have appropriate career paths, and their language, their heritage language and culture was for them not a barrier, but one of their strengths. We also aim to look at how the Romanian, Bulgarian and Albanian heritage speakers were integrated within the London secondary school settings, and examine their cultural, linguistic and identify their development. Also to look at the school's efforts and provisions that support their integration and culture in a broader sense, and also to contribute to raising their aspirations, which was our main aim in life and further higher education. Also to demystify university application system and requirements, and inspire trust in equal opportunities and chances for everyone to university education. How did we plan? How did we plan to do these sessions and to do this project? All the sessions, we thought it would be better to be held at UCL campus. As Ramona mentioned earlier, it's better if the students would come to a university setting rather than we go to them. So we planned 3 sessions. The first one with the general title, Me as a Citizen of the World. The second one, Where Next with My Heritage. And the third one, Life at University, a joint lecture session. The first session, where there were the 3 languages, Romanian, Bulgarian, and Albanian, we separated it in 3 mini sessions. The first one, it was about identity. Who am I? My story. So my cultural identity, multiple identities, multiculturalism, citizenship, and we spoke about different very well-known Albanians, Bulgarians, Romanians, how their journey was and how did they manage to be successful within the UK or in other countries. The second session was about stereotypes. We know very well stereotypes are very strong for some of our cultures, and we want to make students understand how these stereotypes are born, why, how we can overcome them. And it's not, we try to see stereotypes in different cultures, so we don't feel that this stereotype, it's only about one culture, it's only about the students' culture, but it's more general. And also in the third part, we spoke about culture and each language separately, about music, customs, traditions, food museums, prize winners, and interesting cultural facts and highlights. We use different activities, not only presenting to them, but also trying to map, let's say, Albanian or Romanian, Bulgarian cultural sites, or let's say restaurants and different other sites. So for the students to have a general idea and a general view. So we also, by the end of the session, we had a few recordings. So where the students again were the main, let's say, actors. So here we have 2 short videos. Like, how do you like your culture to be represented to the UK, or your country, or your identity? So here a very short extract. Here are the Romanian students.
La noi în România este foarte multe mâncăruri tradiționale și am dorit să le vedem mai des prin Marea Britanică. De exemplu, sarmalele sau mămăliga cu friptură. Sau din 2 ori de exemplu, vinul sau coniacul Călăraș. Zămă.
And here is an example of the Bulgarian students.
Dacă сегодня для вас инструкторы примерно проявите себе можете учить детей.
So, and that led us to our second session, were next to with my heritage, and in this session, Portuguese also was part of us, joined us. So in the first part of this session, we try to showcase successful Albanians, Bulgarians, Romanians, and Portuguese in the UK. Here in how we organized it was by having videos of successful heritage speakers, successful Albanians, Bulgarians, Romanians, or Portuguese people here in London, in the UK. Videos or direct Zoom calls with them, or we also had invited people so they could speak to the students. Here in the picture is the Albanian ambassador speaking with the students, with the Albanian students about his experience and about language identity in general, which was inspiring for the students. In the second part of the session, we dedicated the second part of the session on why UCL, why students should choose UCL, and why they should choose SSEES, giving them the different degrees, the different degree combinations that they could choose, and why languages are important and how their language would help them in these studies. And in the third part, it was a practical career session where students practice subtitling, interpreting, or different interviews between each other. So here for the Albanian, it was an Albanian short film, animated film. They had to put the subtitles, and also for Bulgarian and Portuguese. Also, the students interviewed each other. Here we have a sample of from the Romanian cohort where they are doing a job interview, and very quickly again.
Bună ziua!
Bună.
Am venit la dumneavoastră să aplic pentru lucru la școală de coreograf. Am multă experiență cu copiii și cu adulții și am finisat LMA College și am finisat Universitatea de dans, de flex.
Și ce te vedeți peste 5 ani, când ne vrem un coreograf oricare, da? Să fie aici pentru mult timp la noi.
And here, two Albanian students who are asking each other about their aspirations, what they want to study in the university. Are they thinking of going to university?
Университет до Тигър.
Am do shkoj në Misirot, se më duket shumë vend edhe atmosferë kulturë, sepse vendet që unë dua të bëj ku të rritem janë këtu.
Pune do të bashkë ku të rritesh.
Mjekës, sepse që shumë me thia.
So, and for all the languages, we have this. We had these interactive career sessions where students could interact in their language and heritage language.
And we also showed them examples of jobs that require their languages as well.
Yes. Examples of jobs that require their languages and not that what they can study, and not only at UCL, but mainly at UCL, because we have such a great number of languages that you can study. And going on in our final session. So firstly, we had some individual sessions, writing tasks, quizzes. Each language had different individual tasks for the students. And the second session was a joint lecture, a lecture about the proverbs, which was in the beginning theoretical, where students had the opportunity to hear about their languages, the introduction, and many of them were impressed about the language tree that Ramona showed them and how their language, like what was the position of their language in the language tree, in the European tree of languages. And also then we talked about proverbs and cliches and theoretically. And the second part was practical, which I'll speak about it in a minute. Again, we spoke about studying at UCL. We had some videos from students that had studied at UCL, which showed the students how it is to study at UCL, the students' perspectives, and how achievable it is to study at UCL. And in the last part, it was the feedback and the certificates. So as I said, in the first part was about, there were individual sessions. Here we see a picture from the Romanian session where the students are writing a fairy tale based on the pictures showed in the screen. And then it was the joint lecture about proverbs, as I said, the first part, theoretical, where in the beginning we also had a few phrases said in different languages, in all the languages of the project. And the second one was a little bit more practical, different phrases, proverbs in different languages. The students had to guess what they meant and how they were in their language, which I think this part they particularly enjoyed. Also, common phrases or proverbs in languages. So how do we say these proverbs? So this was the practical part. And coming now at the end of the feedback. So I have put here like the writing, the students' writing. And it's very important to see how important it is to them that as they put it in their own words, you care about us. So the recognition and the feeling that other people are thinking about them, the university is cares about them, that university is doing these projects about them, about heritage speakers. And also meeting new people, what Dani mentioned before, how important it is to see that you're not alone, that there are other heritage speakers, and not only in your own culture, but in different cultures as well. Now I think the students, they communicate better, not only with their own culture, the students that come from their own heritage and culture, but also with all the groups that were participating in the project. And also we see that they now understand how important their language is. They're not afraid to use their language anymore, and they see it as a strength rather than a barrier. And how is it an advantage, and how they feel that they now can communicate and can use their language. And also in question 4, something that we already mentioned, that we are more closer in language and heritage than we thought. So, and this refers to the different groups that in that day participated in this session. Also, so I speak with my friends, with my mates that I haven't spoken before in the language, and also I practice my language more than usually. And our big question, which was one of the big aims as well, has this project managed to raise their aspirations? So many of them said that yes, they would like now to go to the university, even if their plans before they were all ready to go to study to the university. Now they felt more strongly about going to the university, or the ones that didn't think to go to the university before, now they were thinking about it. So I think this is one of the great outcomes of this project, but we were still looking at the feedback and the outcomes of it. And at the end, so this was the final, at the end of the project, where we gave the certificates, and I agree with Dani before, so the sense of pride of the achievement that they have finished this project. And also, I think that what the main outcome of this project is what I said before, that their heritage, their language is a strength and not a barrier, and higher education is something achievable for all of them. So I want to end it how we ended our last session, with thank you in all the languages that participate in our project.
So if I could invite Mazal and Daniela, where are you guys? Just to say a few words, yes, and what it was for you to join the program. So let me.
Morning. Can you hear me at the back? It's good? Okay. So my name, I don't need a mic, do I?
It's for the online.
It's for the online. Okay. So teacher voice again. So my name is Daniela Mittelstadt. I am a lecturer in Portuguese at UCL. And when I'm nervous, I go from one side to the other. So if I move a lot, you can tell how nervous I am to speak to teachers. Because speaking to students is, you kind of know that who they are and that maybe you know a bit more than they do. But with teachers, you're like, oh, you do this all the time as well. So first things first, raising aspirations. When I was invited to participate, I was like, do I have something to say about this? And do I think I can inspire people and feel that they can do more because they speak a language? And then I'm like, well, speaking Portuguese took me to 5 different countries and 3 continents. And then I tell this to students. I'm like, I speak Portuguese, and I was asked to teach in Venezuela, in South Korea, and now in the UK. So languages have taken me to different places. Languages have managed to take me to Asia, because people in Asia said, I want to learn this. And I say that my students spend 4 years here trying to learn the language they speak. So be proud of it. So I thought, well, maybe if I just say, I represent the power of language in some ways. I represent how languages are important. Maybe they feel that they can too. So even though I can come and I can present and also have an accent, not Italian one, Brazilian one, but yes, it's okay. And you can go far if that's what you want to do. And going far is one question I asked them. We asked, it wasn't only me. It's like, would you like to one day talk to other people about how important language is? Would you like one day in the future to talk to people from schools to say, yes, I speak Bulgarian and that's good. And it was good to hear that some of them were still a bit, oh, I'm not sure. And someone like, yes, one day I hope I can. So I wrote a few notes about the 3 main notes about what I wanted to achieve, is that students would feel that they belong. The second would be that they feel proud of who they are and where they come from. And the third is that representation is important. In society, we want to feel that what we are is important, is relevant, and we can go to places from where we come from. And that can be from Brazil, from Bulgaria, from Romania, or from their neighborhood. What you have to say is important if you value people from your community and if you feel valued and that you have a role to play. So do they feel a bit more that they belong? Yes, for different reasons. Do they belong? they said that they met other people from their schools who spoke other languages, that they could see them. We would go to different rooms. There were 5 different rooms. And they would say, oh, I didn't know that this person spoke Bulgarian and that person spoke that. I didn't know everyone who spoke Portuguese in my school. Not that they now do, but they know more. They know, they meet them in different parts of the university. Yeah, I know. And then they switch the language and they speak Portuguese and they feel that they speak more to them and they had another opportunity of speaking the language. Proud? Well, they did say, and you could see in the feedback form, you care about us. When I read this, I'm like, well, maybe we got somewhere. However, I hope that in the future, they will not have this you care about us. We are in different places. It is, we live in a society that, and in this society, we are valued and not you and us. We are not separate. We are all here together trying to live in a better world, in a better country, in a better city, in a better neighborhood. And to finalize, and I really like that you chose to put the you care about us, because that was, I almost cried when I read it. I'm like, oh, maybe it was relevant. Maybe, you know, working harder, because this project, as you can probably tell, it was like my colleagues worked so hard. I was like, and extra work for us to come to the university. And so, yes, the you care about us was really good. And to finalize, hopefully, yes, hopefully they feel more that they belong, that they are welcome. The university is not a good university. It feels too much you and, you there and us here. We need to be open, we need to welcome people, and that they feel that they can come here to the university and be here. So belonging, hopefully, yes. They are proud of where they come from and where they are going to go in the future, and in the future talk to their colleagues and classmates or other children. Yes, it was important to have this heritage, and that they feel that representing where they come from is also relevant for who they are. So fingers crossed you'll have many ideas so that we can also do better in the future. But ideally, we would like to hear from the kids in the future and have their smile saying, it was great to come to the university, and say, yes, thank you for having us. And you'll tell us. Okay, so thank you very much.
Working, can everyone hear me? Hello, thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for our wonderful colleagues and Ella for inviting me to join this amazing project. My name is Masalo Agnin. I am Associate Professor in Spanish Language, Literature, and Spanish Language Coordinator at UCL. And as you've heard, I joined the RAP project when they were already on the last leg of their journey. For Spanish, things are very different. We are spoiled in the sense that we have great uptake when it comes to GCSEs, A-levels. We also have many opportunities for qualifications and for diplomas. For example, we have the Vicente Cañada Blanch primary school and secondary school. We also have the ALCE network of extracurricular lessons, Spanish for heritage speakers. That doesn't mean that we need to rest on our laurels, because many of the ALCE classrooms are now closing down and we have less centers, which means that many students, including my oldest daughter, will have it difficult. You know, things will be more difficult for them, and it's a shame. However, we take pride on the popularity of our courses. We have so many students. And in that sense, when I joined this program, not only was a really enriching and rewarding experience for the students, but for me, it was a very eye-opening experience. We cannot call ourselves an inclusive department, and it's not enough with all these wonderful efforts to liberate the curriculum and decolonize the language, which, of course, I very much support, and I think that we have to celebrate in this sense. But it got me thinking, how many hundreds, probably thousands of students are we leaving behind? They could also be joining us, and they are not joining us Why? Because they are heritage speakers, because they have low aspirations, because even though their Spanish is as good as mine, they never had it in them to think that they could join university. So it was a privilege to work with a group of students from Ella's school. They were a fun bunch. They also had a really strong sense of community. They were very chatty. They were very motivated. They loved the opportunity of being at UCL. And it had never occurred to them that maybe they could also do something with that multicultural, multilingual heritage, which was not yet useful for cracking jokes with their mates in school or with communicating with their families, but it has a very important value educationally, academically, professionally, economically, culturally, in every sense, and they should tap into that superpower. I really love that expression. So hopefully they left with the idea that they should continue on their journey to having real pride, but also on their academic prospects. And I also have to say that my participation in this project has sparked very important and much needed conversations in my department. And it's like signaling a turning point. I think that now we are much more opening to working in order to reach out to these heritage speakers of Spanish. And also, I have to say, professionally, sometimes academia is in its ivory tower. It's such a reality check on how universities and high schools, primary schools should work together to achieve real change. Because if these things are only happening, so that the elite can benefit from all of these changes, that is not really inclusive, that is not real change. So I've learned so much from you, and I look forward to collaborating further. Thank you so much. We'll, in a second, move on to hear from the school. But I just wanted to remind you, Mirela, you didn't say anything about the course you're running with adult heritage, because just like two lines, but just to show that, there's a wide kind of
Yes,
audience.
thank you. Yes. So this January, for the first time, we opened a Albanian heritage speakers course, and the short courses, evening courses at SSEES, UCL. It's the first heritage speakers course amongst the evening courses language at SSEES. And for the Albanian language is the only one for heritage speakers, for adult heritage speakers in any university in the UK. Maybe the project sparked, let's say, our initiative together with Ramona to open such a course. But it's very important because we know there are supplementary schools which support school children with their languages, but after that, that's a gap. So it's a very good opportunity for the young professionals who already speak the language in their family, on their familiar settings, but they want now to refine their language knowledge, and they want to also to use it in a professional manner as well, because now they understand that it's very important that they can use their heritage language as a professional language as well. So this was very important to us, and we have had a good response for this heritage speakers course, and we hope it continues, and not only with us, with other languages as well, because it's a good opportunity for adults, for young adults that have already finished their education, to continue and to polish their language and to improve their language. Many of the students, they are interested about the grammar part because they know how to speak in their family. They're not sure about the grammatical structures they want to use, or they want to improve their vocabulary because, again, they can speak in their family settings, but they want that vocabulary to use the language professionally as well. And of course, they are very, very, very excited when we introduce topics about their culture and the history, the culture, literature. So every aspect. So this is how we have started, and we hope we'll have a good journey with this course and other languages as well. Thank you.
Sleep, breathe, and eat heritage community languages. So could I invite Miss Ella Teschi and her two students, Cosminto Dirasa and Enola Coca, or you will tell them. Yeah. So thank you so much. So yeah, let me just do that.
Hello, everyone. Mierdita, Dobry den. Thank you for having me again. I do feel like home now, a little bit. And after I see my E11s out, actually, this year, I might move in. I don't know if that's okay. It is a lovely place to be, and it's been wonderful to work with UCL for the last 2 years. My name is Ella Teschi. I am Head of Inclusion at Parkview School. Parkview School is a comprehensive school in Haringey, actually. It is in the most, and I'm going to say this with a lot of pride, it is in the most diverse postcode in the country. It has kept its status for several years, and it is still the case. Now, the beautiful thing about UCL is that there's no dominant ethnic group. In fact, there are 106 ethnic groups as of now, and there isn't a predominant group, which is wonderful. And all of this is actually reflected at Parkview School. We are, I'd say, a regular, common, comprehensive school, not too large, not too small. We've got just over 1,000 pupils on roll. Year 7 to year 11, we used to have a sixth form many, many years ago. Not the case anymore. And the interesting fact about the makeup of our school is that we've kept the status of being 75% EAL ever since I got there. And I've worked at Parkview for the last 15 years now. I am an English teacher. I teach English as an additional language. My specialism is EAL, but also I teach GCSE English. Our pupils come from all sorts of parts of the world. We currently have 50 heritage languages spoken at Parkview. And I'd say 15%, and that's about 170 pupils, make up our EAL focus cohort. By EAL focus, I mean pupils who are at early stages of English language acquisition. So not only that they're there to learn English, but they're also there to learn in English, which is a double one. It's not easy at all. And I'm sure that many of us have been in this situation before. Okay, I've got a little map there just to show you where our school is, well, where Haringey is really. We've worked more closely with Haringey this year, actually. We've got a project, and I'm going to tell you about in a minute. Okay, a little bit about what we do in terms of nurturing heritage languages and celebrating heritage languages at Parkview. So I've got a snapshot of the wonderful things that we do with our students. First of all, I picked a quote. It is from a poem called The Emigre by Carol Rumens. And it's very dear to me, and it's very dear to our students as well. And it goes, that child's vocabulary I carried here, like a hollow door, opens and spills a grammar. Soon I shall have every coloured molecule of it. I teach this as part of the GCSE syllabus for the conflict poetry, power and conflict poetry. And every time I introduce this poem to my pupils, by the way, are all heritage language speakers in my GCSE class. I teach them GCSE English through EAL methods. And they absolutely love doing it this way. They love being with each other. And they actually identify themselves with this. As Miss, we bring here, we feel that we carried here a hollow door. But you know what? You're actually helping us do the last part, you know, us developing that grammar. And how do we do it? Well, first of all, the moment they walk through our door, our EAL pupils are being assessed. And they're not just being assessed in terms of their English and maths, but we also assess their ability in their languages. So we are asking them to read and write and speak in their language for us to get an understanding of how able they are, how good they are, how proficient they are with their language. Now, we do this sort of support we extend to our parents as well, parents and carers. So from the very beginning, I'd say about 10 years ago, we set up these parent forums. The majority of our parents don't speak English, and often they felt they couldn't have their voices heard. And this is where I came up with the idea of actually setting up these parent forums. So we see parents 2-3 times a year when they come in, and they actually can have their voices heard because they can speak their own languages. I have a very large team. When I started 15 years ago, there were 2 or 3 colleagues. Right now, actually, I have a football team, and I'm very proud of that. So there are 11 of us all together, which is wonderful. And amongst us, we speak about 23 languages, which is, again, amazing. So every single student that walks through that door will have somebody to talk to in their language, and that goes for their parents too. And if we don't have that particular language, then we will dig deep. And we will go into our community roots and reach out to the local community, and we will find someone, whether it's an ex-pupil or whether it's an ex-parent, we'll find that someone to make sure that the family is welcomed. We also developed our parents and carers English. For the last, I'd say, 10 years again, we've been offering free English lessons to our parents and carers. They're happening every week. They come in. I've got a little picture there to show you. Obviously, that was the celebration at the very end after they got their certificates. And we have parents who've been with us for the last 3 years, actually. And they started off on entry 1, and now they're actually doing entry 3, which is required, correct me if I'm wrong, for passing the citizenship exam in this country. So they passed, and they have they've signed up for the citizenship exam, and they've passed that too, which is wonderful. In terms of how we celebrate languages, heritage languages at Parkview, I must say I am very proud of us as a school. It is not just the inclusion faculty's effort to do this. Our school, Parkview, is wonderfully inclusive, and we always make sure that our curriculum is also very diverse. We celebrate cultural diversity in assemblies, but we also have a very fun day, which we call the Cultural Diversity Day. So I've included a couple of pictures there as well. You can probably spot my 2 students there too, far away. The beauty about this event is that it's not just for the students, it's also for members of staff. So we all come dressed up, and we all try a bit of each other's food in the street area. Where that day we just learn about each other's languages. That's all that happens. That's the only learning that happens in the school on that particular day. And we've been doing this for many, many years, and we take great pride in that. Now, when parents, when new families come and sign their pupils up at Parkview, they often get anxious about the fact that their children don't speak English. And I said, well, that's okay. That's what we're here for. Our job is to make sure that we develop your children's English. But do you think I should speak English to them at home? And I said, actually, no. Please don't. Obviously, if the parent's English is proficient, then yes, it might help. But it's so important that parents and carers and grandparents, they are our secret weapon, grandparents, and I'll tell you why in a minute. it's so important that they continue to speak these heritage languages at home. Leave the English to us. Because when children come to school, they will have the chance to develop that English. And I'm going to give you an example why it's important for the heritage languages to be developed, for these hollow dolls to become full of these colorful molecules, is because if you are proficient in your first language, your second language will come faster and it will become part of who you are much faster than you think. So speaking English actually won't take that long. You'll have the grammar, you'll have the vocabulary, and a lot of it is transferable. And once that opens your door to a second language, then in comes a third and a fourth and a fifth. I actually have a student in year 11 called Khalid, and he's done 4 GCSEs in community languages already. He's from China, he's a Uyghur speaker, and he's done a GCSE in German, in Turkish, in Chinese, and he's about to do one in English. And he's ever so modest, bless him. He's saying, but miss, that's fine, it's just languages I speak. Great. So the reason why I was saying that it's very important that having this heritage language strong is so important is because it makes English not just easier and faster to acquire, but it actually develops the students academically. Now, I teach a GCSE Year 10 class and a GCSE A-Level class. And as I said, my pupils are all EAL-focused pupils. So they are learning the GCSE curriculum English through EAL methods from me. Now, for the last 3 years, I'd say, my class has managed to do a 92% pass rate in their GCSE English Lit. And actually, they've done better than the other classes in the school. And I know that this is hard to believe because when they arrive in year 10, they're like grade 1 or even below. So they don't have that confidence in themselves and they don't think they can do it. And then showing them the data, and what I do, I show this data to every class every year to sort of boost their confidence. And it isn't about, yes, they don't have enough language in year 10, but we have 2 years, people. In 2 years, we can move mountains. And that's exactly what they do. And this is down to the fact that the first language is solid. Without their first language being solid, they would not be able to pull these results. And I'm not just talking about the GCSE English, I'm talking about maths and sciences and so on. Now, as part of our work with the borough, with Harringay Borough this year, we actually set up an integration program. This is quite fun to talk to you about actually, because it's very new, it's just out of the oven. We started this project with them this year because we looked at some year 11 pupils. I'm not sure if you know, but when year 11 pupils join and they have no English at all and they join after Christmas, schools tend to panic. You know? They're like, what do we do with them? They don't speak English. They can't get any GCSEs. We can't look after them. We don't have EAL teachers. It's the general panic. And to be fair, even if they arrive in year 10, the panic is pretty similar. So we then spoke to the borough and we thought, well, why don't we become a hub? I have a football team, I can use it. So this is how we came up with this project, which is called the integration program. Originally, the borough wanted us to teach them ESOL. And I turned around and I said, actually, that's quite boring because to have a class of students just learning English every single day from 8:30 until 3:30 can get a bit boring. So we thought of, adding a bit of a balanced diet in their day-to-day lessons. So now they're learning a subject called Life in the UK, where they learn about British values and they learn about the country and they learn about what it's like to be part of this society. We teach them maths. We prepare them for the GCSE community languages because a lot of them, they started in February and they're now doing, as we speak this week, they're doing their GCSEs in Arabic. My Arabic boy had his exam today, actually. Just as I was leaving, he was getting ready. He was very red. I said, you'll be fine, Rabbi. You're absolutely fine. Now, all of these pupils will be doing a GCSE in their community language, but 3 or 4 of them have proved to be very, very good mathematicians. So I turned around to the exams officer and said, do you think there's a chance that we could enter them? And he was like, are you mad? They arrived in February. They have no English. And I said, that's okay. We'll give them a dictionary in the exam. They can show off their maths. And they've been entered. And they are preparing for it. And in their mock paper, they actually got grade 5. Hooray. So there is a lot of potential. Well, though we only have them, we've had them from since February. The project will finish in June, where obviously they're going to go. They're not going to leave without having 3 or 4 applications for colleges completed already, of course. ICT is a big part of their lessons, so they learn not only just how to use computers or how to apply for jobs and so on, we give them life skills. And amongst these, their ICT teacher does the actual applications with them. So when these pupils leave in June, they will be absolutely college ready. Now, when they arrived in February, they couldn't speak a word of English. I must say, right now, I see them in the corridor sometimes. We actually have a banter in English with them, and it's wonderful. And they've been around for half a term, not even a full term, but it's impressive how quickly they can absorb. The other thing that we do for our heritage speakers is at Key Stage 3. So he's looking at year 7s, 8s, and 9. What we have is an immersion program. We call it the EAL immersion program. As they come in, they join this program with my team, where we give them the very basics in terms of their language, but also key vocab and skills and topics that they need across the curriculum. So it's basically a mini school within a big bad school. So it's looking at staying with us for the first, I'd say, 7 to 8 weeks. For half a term, we equip them with the basics. After they finish the program, off they go to swim in with a big fish in the big bad mainstream. Now, after they still come to us twice a week or so, to give them that boost. We don't completely abandon them, of course. Actually, if they arrive in year 7, they still come to say hello in year 11. And some of them end up in my GCSE class. I feel sorry for them. Okay. In terms of what we do with our GCSE community languages or heritage languages, every year we have about 13, 14 exams that we enter pupils for. When I first started at Parkview, MFL was doing, I believe, French and Spanish, and they didn't have time to take on, and I think that's often the case with secondary schools. MFL colleagues are so stretched. I know Camila is nodding at the back there. They are very stretched. It's not that they don't have the willingness to do it, but they are extremely stretched. So I went up to them and I said, hey, I've got some people. They speak these languages. Why don't we take this on? And this is how it started. It started as us volunteering to organize these exams. And I must say, every year now, these pupils are generating about 130 GCSEs every year. And I've included some figures there because numbers don't lie. 96% of them actually got a pass rate, a solid pass rate. And we're particularly very proud of that 30% grade 9. Look at that. Considering these pupils, most of them were born here. Look at our Turkish candidates. The majority of them were born here. And we don't teach them these languages. These languages are not part of their curriculum. We do not have the capacity to offer it as part of the curriculum. So it's all based on co-curricular provision. Here's some past papers. Go home, get your granny to help you. So this is where grannies and grandpas are absolutely crucial for this. Why grannies and grandpas? Well, because the parents are busy at work. So this is where grandparents, and with the forums, the parent forums, we do have a few grandparents as well. And I actually asked the parents to bring them in to say exactly that to them. Please speak your language to them at home. Please go through these papers with them at home. And they absolutely love it, the grannies and the grandpas, because they love sharing this with their grandchildren. In terms of how we find members of staff, I know that some of the schools have turned around and said, how do you find these people? Well, actually, by keeping in touch with people. The community is a wonderful thing. It's full of resources. So, yes, we have a lot of members of staff who speak all sorts of languages. And as soon as this new members of staff joins, that person becomes part of my radar straight away. So we have staff members doing most of these languages. If we do not have any members of staff who speak some languages, we reach out to parents, carers, we train them. The other day, actually on Monday, we had a Persian. We needed a Persian assessor. So we reached out to a parent. He said, yeah, no problem. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. Also, ex-pupils. We had GCSE Polish last week, and our GCSE Polish assessor is a lovely girl called Marta, who used to be my student in 2012. Now she's a grown woman, and she remembers me delivering her GCSE English lessons, and she said, "Miss, you traumatized me with all that poetry and all that Shakespeare. I'll never forget you." And I said, "Please don't, because we need you every year. We absolutely need you every year." Okay. Now, why we chose to be part of this? I'm just going to tell you a very quick story about how we came to know Ramona and how we came to work with them in the first place. You know me and my community, us trying to keep in touch with everyone. Well, a former student of mine who finished in 2011 actually happens to work in HR at UCL. And because I kept in touch with her, she said, "Oh, we have a Romanian professor. Why don't you get in touch with her? Maybe you could sort of set up a project." And I said, "Why not?" Okay, so this is how it all started. So I got in touch with Ramona, and Ramona said, "How do you feel about doing this?" And I said, "You know what? It's a great idea, because while we have loads of Romanian speakers who are newer to the country, so their Romanian is nice and proficient, we have some Romanian speakers who have been here for many, many years, and some even born here, who don't feel as confident. And these lessons would really benefit them." And also, it's looking at why these particular languages. Well, as Ramona was saying herself, it's because there isn't the GCSE in them. So our pupils, the Romanians, the Bulgarians, the Albanians, every time these peers of theirs come for their assessment, it's like, "Miss, what about us? This is discrimination." I said, "Well, it's not us. Have it out with the government, not us. Have it out with the exam boards, not us. We would love to set this up for you. And as soon as we win this battle, we are going to get you to do your GCSEs. But in the meantime, why not get involved in this? Why not get involved and actually be part of this as well?" And this is how it came about. And we had an average of 50 pupils. Right now, actually, in terms of statistics, we have about 55 Romanian speakers at Parkview. And we have about 75 Bulgarian speakers at Parkview, with about 40 odd Albanians. I bet you didn't know that, I know that. Now you do. Okay. And it was a wonderful project. We did this last year, and we thought, we love this. We don't want out. And the kids were saying, "Miss, we love the trips. Yes, we get to miss lessons and be out and over a bit." And I said, "Okay, let's keep going then." So this is when we came up with, obviously, with this project, together with Ramona and her colleagues. And we thought, okay, we did the language lessons. What next? What comes next? And that's exactly, it's that word, that keyword next, where to next with these languages? And then we originally started off, as my colleague said, with Romanian, Albanian, and Bulgarian. I was very specific about Albanian in particular, and I'm not going to tell you this story. I'm going to let one of the students tell you the story as to why Albanian, why I chose Albanian. And then soon after, us teachers, we get greedy, don't we? So we thought, well, I have a lot of Brazilian kids, and they keep saying, "Miss, we're never part of anything." And then we had a lot of Dominican kids who came along, and Colombians, and kids from Honduras. And, "Miss, what about us? How come they get to do this and not us?" So this is where we reached out to UCL, and so I commend you. You were so wonderfully flexible, and you were so lovely to bring all of these pupils along, because we started off with 30, 40 kids, and then to bring 60 kids with us, and I'm very proud of the fact that we haven't lost a single one. That's quite rare. I mean, teachers out there, they're going on school trips, you know how hard that is. But because they loved it so much, they stuck together. And it actually gave them exactly what Daniela said there, a sense of belonging. The way they sort of bonded with each other, not just within each group, but in between the groups, and then pointing at each other. Like, "I had no idea you spoke Romanian. I had no idea you spoke Albanian," because a lot of them were born here. And they have that uniform accent, don't they? They sound very, very British. So that was the project. Now, I believe it was a couple of years ago, when it was after the Peel project, that I was invited as a guest speaker, and that was when Camilla Smith, at the back there, give us a wave. She sort of spotted me, and she said, "How about you come back how about you come back to the IOE and you do something like this for the PGCE cohort for languages? And I said, well, why not? Because your languages people are very much in line with my EAL heart. It's all a lovely big fat community, isn't it? So this is where this sort of started. So for the last couple of years, lovely Camilla invited me over, and I actually took two of my students with me last time. I mean, I was terrified. You must have had 600, 700 people in there. The kids were absolutely in control. And they kept turning around to me and saying, Miss, don't worry, we've got this. And I said, well, that's exactly why I love you. And yes, it did make you cry a little bit. Yes. So what happened after that wonderful speech is that a lot of the Camilla's PGCE students are reaching out to us to say, hey, can we come and have a look at your EL provision? But actually, can we have a look at your MFL provision too? And that joint MFL EAL brought this wonderful visit, because I think you brought all your people in, about 20 odd people came to have a look at our provision. And you know what? That was the first time that we actually worked more closely with MFL within our own school. So thank you for that. And it was wonderful to share our practice with the PGCE students, because let's face it, these PGCE students will become mainstream teachers. And it's so important for them to understand the value of these heritage languages and understand how EAL pupils learn. Right now, there is a PGCE student in MFL who has been timetable in EAL. So 50% of his timetable is actually EAL. He came around and he said, I want to do this. And I said, great, we need people to read. So join our reading club. I think that's about it. I'm just going to leave you. I know I go on and on and on. Sorry for waffling. I'm going to leave you with a few quotes that are quite dear to me, actually. And I'm just going to give you 20 seconds to read through them. I've added right at the bottom our Thrive statement. So this year we've been told that we have to rebrand. We rebrand our PV badge, we rebrand our motto, and we've been asked to provide a motto. And I thought, what more beautiful than this? It is actually EAL, but I wasn't sure whether there would be EAL specialists in the audience. It was lovely to see that, yes, we have a lot of EAL specialists in the audience. In fact, we have a colleague that I used to work with about 18, 20 years ago. Lovely to see you again. Now, English as an additional language is a gift, not a barrier. And everything that we do at Parkview, not just within the inclusion department, but as a school, is recognizing that. Because remember, a strong first language will bring about a strong second language and third and fourth and fifth. Thank you so much for having me. I am now going to hand over to my wonderful students. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. They've been very, very brave to come with me today. In fact, they've been holding my hand. Miss, it's okay, you'll be fine. I do need that. And in fact, this is my secret weapon, because I get so sort of nervous. But when I have my children with me, I feel comforted. And those nerves just sort of dissipate. So I'm just going to hand over to them. Enola is going to speak to you first about her experience of the project this year.
Hello, it's so nice to meet you all. It's like a big privilege to be with you guys here today. So a little bit about me. My name is Enola. I am originally from Albania, and I moved here when I was around like 6, 7 years old. And I think like over the years, like I think I've got like a really like connection like to my country. Like I think like I love learning about it, and like the fact that like this has been like honored here in UCL, like one of the top universities in London. I think it made me like feel a little bit more valued, because like Albania like it made it feel like valued and seen, like my country, like in like a top university in the heart of England. And a little story that Miss Heskey also mentioned before was that basically one time we was in form, and it was my best friend and Miss, and we just sat down and they were thinking about, I just kept hearing like Bulgarian trip, Romanian trip. So I was thinking like, oh, okay, like what about Albania? Like it's very like Balkan centered. So I was like, okay, it's just about Albania. So then I remember I asking her, I was like, Miss, like, can anything be done? But like the little did I know that like deep down she already had that thought in her. and like with her visions and her mind, she made it come true. And then one random day she came and told me, she was like, "Oh, Nola, like we have a trip. They have a trip to go to like Albanian trip." And then like a personal experience to the whole 3 sessions that we had, it felt like very surreal because like I remember when I was like a little child in Albania, like it was like little people, like our little kids, and like it was just, you know, childhood memories. And then when I came here and we did like the whole room, like all Albanian students, one Albanian teacher in the heart of England, it felt like very like nostalgic. Like I felt like I was reliving my childhood again. And another thing is that with our amazing Mrs. Mirella, she really helped us like to brought me back like to my roots and our amazing like language, to remind us that like your country is yours and like nothing can be changed about it. And you should like admire it and like make it a thing about you that can stand out and inspire other people as well. I think that the fact that, as I said before, it's been like mentioned in the UCL, it made like me feel very valued, and it made me feel like as if like you matter and like your country matters, and you should do something about it and make bring more awareness to it. And for my future aspirations, as I look forward, I see many opportunities ahead of me, and I really like science. So I'm hoping like in the future I get to do something about science, a big chemistry fan. And I think speaking with heritage is extremely important because like not only you get a deep connection to who you are, like you really link to your past, like you're learning about yourself, this is your country, like why would you not want to learn about it? Like you should feel inspired, like this is you, it's about you. And another thing is that I think that the fact that other people get to learn other languages is because you know your own language. I think that will literally help you so much to learn different languages, because if you don't know your own language properly, then you won't benefit to learn others as well. So it's a really good benefit. And I think it just keeps your culture alive in your heart. Like it's always there at the back of your head to remind you, like this is you, this is your country, this is where you came from, this is where you first started, like this is the first step. So I think it's really beautiful because like you can use something that people like could be a bit ashamed about, and you can turn it something beautiful and like get so much far ahead. Like we have interpreters, we have translators, like so much. And I think it gives you like a lot of opportunities in the future. So that means that you can go ahead with it a lot. And I wanted to thank Ms. Teskey because she had this vision and she made it come true with all her hard work and all of the UCL teachers that I met here. And thank you so much for my time and letting me tell you about my role. Thank you.
Mostly to start introducing myself, when I do speeches, because I'm too used to performing drama and music, I don't tend to stay still on stage. So if I'm moving a lot, it's mainly because I'm too used to moving. But to start off, I'm Cosmin, I'm a student at Parkview, I'm year 10, and I'm a Romanian speaker. I actually at first wasn't proud of being a Romanian speaker. I didn't find use for my language, I didn't find use for my heritage. But after when I got given the letter to go UCL, I was shocked. UCL, big university, 5th best in London, correct me if not. But I got shocked. And I was so shocked, I actually was kind of scared to wake up that morning to go UCL. But when I went, I saw a whole class of Romanians. I was shocked. I didn't know that any of them spoke Romanian. I met my best friend there, and we've spoken since. But that's off topic now. But to be on topic more, I didn't know that Romanian could get me far with my aspirations. I have an aspiration to go into law. I didn't know Romanian could help me at all. I didn't know it could do this much for me. And I was so shocked after those lessons. And I felt, after the first one, I felt so proud of being Romanian, speaking Romanian. Just being there made me feel proud of myself. And after all those sessions, learning more about my culture, like example, I didn't know much about my foods. Romanian foods. I didn't know anything about them, to be fair, besides sarmale, because it's common. But I learned so much more about my own culture, about my own life, to put it actually, my own ethnicity, that I was so happy to be there. I was so proud. I was so shocked because I came here, 8 years ago now. I've lived here more than I've lived in Romania. And when I came here, there was no Romanians at my primary. I was shocked, I didn't know what to do. Then I came to Parkview. I met Miss Teskey when I started in year 7. And by then I already spoke Romanian, so unfortunately I don't have her. But when I came to Parkview, I found more Romanians than I thought. And that made me feel more, given me a sense of community, to be fair. Same thing with UCL. I thought it made me feel part of a community. But to start off, my main wish, the one last thing I'm actually going to say as well, is that Romanian and other languages should be invested in to be put in GCSE timetables, because not only for Romanians or other people who speak Eastern European language, it should be put in place for other people. Like example, I saw students at UCL that wanted to study Romanian, and I was shocked. I didn't know they wanted to study Romanian. And I have some friends that have asked me for Romanian words and to teach them Romanian. I didn't know how. I'm not a teacher, I have no clue what to do. And I thought, if they're so curious about doing Romanian, why wasn't there a subject? I was shocked when I didn't find out there's actually GCSE for it, or any lessons for it at all. And I think it would be such an advancement, not only to have a second language, but it creates that sense of community when you have a second language and you can speak to people. But I think that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I'm actually quite honored to be here.
My name is Sophia. I'm a student and I Proficiency Lead in Education Multilingual. This is a picture of some children from my school, from Kensington Primary. We're in Newham. My class, 3-4 men, 150 people. We have around 51 members, but it can change very rapidly because we have children joining and leaving. So this week I had 3 children joining different years, and I have some children leaving this week. So I'm constantly updating and changing who in our school and how we represent them. Right, so I normally start off with a presentation asking who's monolingual, bilingual, multilingual. I'm assuming everyone's multilingual here. But anyway, anybody a monolingual here? Is any monolinguals? Put your hands up. Any monolinguals? So just a little bit about myself. I actually considered myself a monolingual for many, many years. I only changed how I thought about myself and my languages when I started doing this work at multilingualism. Now, I grew up, I was born and brought up in the UK, went to school, obviously I speak English as my first language. My parents are Indians, we speak Urdu at home. I went to Urdu Catholic class, and actually I even did an Urdu GCSE and I got an A. At secondary school, I learned French. I wasn't very good at French, so I got a C. If somebody asked me, do you speak another language? Because Urdu, I didn't think it was important. I didn't think I was great at it. I said I was a monolingual. Because my understanding of languages always has been that you have to be absolutely perfect at the language. I had an accent in Urdu. So when I speak to my relatives, they make fun of me because I've got a very English accent. Or when I'm on the phone, it's even worse. I can't see their facial expressions. I don't know what I'm saying sometimes. I stumble and my family laughs at me. So I always considered myself a monolingual. And doing this work around languages and the way we acquire languages has really kind of been a discovery for myself. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is that the more I work with schools, I work with schools across the country, and even in my own school, when we started this work, there was a lot of realization among the staff. A lot of staff say to me, a lot of teachers, a lot of leaders say, I'm a monolingual. They look like they might not be monolingual. I'm not sure. And then as we go through the theory and then look at language, suddenly people are like, oh, actually, yeah, I have Twi. Or actually, oh, yeah, there's a bit of Igbo in my family. Or we're Punjabi. Or there's a bit of Qawari. So why is it? Why are we missing? Where are we in education? And what's going on? And what do we say around languages? So I come from an adult education background. I was a college lecturer first, pretty top. And then primary school called me for some help because lots of children are coming in and they can't speak English very well. So can you help us, Sophia? So I started working in a primary school. And just a disclaimer, every time I was in a primary school, I kept thinking I'm going to be walked out of it because I'm not a primary trained person. Anytime I said inspector's training, anytime somebody inspected the work I was doing, I kept saying, just so you know, the paperwork is I'm an adult lecturer. I'm not a primary trained teacher. It's been okay. And what shocked me when I came into schools was actually what people say around languages. And what do people say? He's new to English, he has nothing. This child doesn't understand the lesson. I think he has needs. He's making slower progress as he has 2 different languages at home. Mum, Dad, you need to make sure you speak to them in English at home. I don't know what to do with him. He has no English. And I'm not saying this is people trying to be medicine. Teachers are under a lot of pressure. They've got a lot of work to do. But there are these micro messages that are going out all the time. Born out of frustration, born out of lack of knowledge, and born out of not knowing what to do when a child comes in who has little or no English. And who are our pupils with EAL? So I was considered a pupil with EAL. So this is a DfE definition. I'm not going to read all of it. But what's interesting is where a child was exposed to more than one language during early development, the language other than English is recorded, irrespective of the child's proficiency in English. So I was EAL. Now, me and my husband, because we didn't value our language, we never spoke it. We never spoke at home. We only speak English, unless we want to say something, we don't swear, or we want to say something in secret. We would try really hard with our bad Urdu to talk to each other. The children would try and listen, but we never taught them. My children would know. I would go to school and I'd say that they only speak English. They're not exposed to other languages like other children. No, they're still EAL. Now, actually, so this term EAL, who does it represent? Who is under this label? And actually, I think we're doing some work at school, there's a deficit approach to languages. And I'm not saying this is on purpose. I think it's happening just through the education system. If you're EAL, there's lack of education. English is missing. If you don't have a language, you kind of have language. There's a lack of vocabulary. That's something's broken and it needs fixing quickly so we can get them to join in education. Lack of academic skills, or that child has no language. We put them as language children until we give them the gift of English, and now they can learn, right? And so at my school, we changed our curriculum just before COVID. So my head teacher at the time, so we have, as I said, 51 languages. We were teaching the national curriculum, but we were trying to do lots of extra other things that children needed. And we did a real rethink of the whole curriculum. We changed our whole approach. As part of that, we looked at MFL, which is Modern Foreign Languages. And we taught for half an hour a week by a cover teacher. It was Mandarin. And it was taught to cover PPA. So that teacher would go around all the classrooms teaching the same Mandarin lesson throughout the week to cover all the teachers. And do you think children really spoke Mandarin? Not really. And children have all these other languages. So we had a really honest discussion as a school. Do we need MFL? Now, I didn't think this was allowed, but they got rid of MFL. And they said, right, we're going to learn all the languages. Yeah. All the languages. Great. Where do I go? How do I do this? What school is promoting all the languages? And I looked around and I couldn't find any school that was promoting every single language. And how do I do that? There is no guide to promoting all languages at school. What if I get it wrong? So the more I looked at languages, the more multilingual became. I started sharing theory with the rest of my school, and we started looking at it. And actually, what we realised was with multilingualism, there was a whole shift in mindset for all of us. With multilingualism, all languages are suddenly seen as on an equal status. Everyone's language is recognised, including my own. So I was included in, including my fellow staff members at school. Languages were viewed as a strength suddenly. Oh my goodness. But honestly, you don't realise this. The realisation I had that Urdu is my language and it's pretty amazing. But why did nobody ever tell me this? Why was I grew up with my parents trying to tell, they taught me Urdu, they did the best job. I didn't believe Urdu was through education, it was not bad. I only counted French as the main language, I didn't learn it. But Urdu wasn't there. I thought it was there. I had to develop my own language. And it's a different script, it's a different direction. And that's pretty amazing. I can read and write Urdu. So that languages are viewed as a strength, a child's identity is fostered, a child is seen as having unique skill, and a child brings all of their linguistic repertoire to school, which I think is, what we need to be doing. And actually, just a little story about this. So we didn't go about changing the whole school approach to multilingual. It happened quite by accident. So I was sharing the theory, and suddenly teachers were getting empowered. So teachers were just suddenly messaging me after school with pictures from their class saying, "Oh my goodness, this child can write in the script. It's a script to me. I can write my career. I can load my course with 3 languages. How can I realize?" The teachers were empowered. The teachers were suddenly realizing that they've got a class that's been full. Okay, rather than empty, rather than looking at our school as 96% EAL, we realized we have a school that is full of resource, and teaching and learning changed drastically. It was like somebody lit fire to my school. That's the only way I can explain it. Everybody's minds had changed. And I was sitting in the office one day with one of the assistant heads from performance development for another staff member. And she was talking about some work she was doing with children at the time. And he said to her, "Oh, don't you mean the multilingual children? How are the multilingual children doing?" And I was listening, thinking, what? We haven't changed our approach, we haven't changed our language. But when she left, I said to him, "Jennifer, how come you said you're using the word multilingual to talk about the children now? Because we're just looking at the theory." And he said, "Sufia, I speak 5 languages. I know I have an accent." He's from Pakistan. And he said that I always feel put down when people say, "Yeah." I, as a leader, feel put down. As he said this, another senior member who is from Croatia, she walked in and she said, "Absolutely, I feel exactly the same way." She said, "We're multilingual and I'm so proud of it. Finally, we have some recognition." So to me, it was more than just about the way we look at children. It's the way we view ourselves, the way I view myself. So you cannot get away from your own mindset when you look at how you treat children with their languages. Oh, and a child was happy to come. So, and what do parents believe about the importance of the home language? So I set up language cafes for parents, helping them meet in the different language groups, to talk about the importance of languages. And here's some of the things they said. My child only replies in English, so there's no point. But home language will hold them back in school. I don't want my child to have an accent. I don't think my language is important for their education. So who influences a child's love for their first languages? You have families, so people are telling them stories about their languages, so their parents, grandparents, extended family. The whole school leadership team, everybody in school, front office, middays, governors, everybody has an opinion about languages. And then you've got community services, places of worship, speech and language services, doctors, social services. Everybody's giving advice, and often, more often than not, it's really bad advice. And to have a shared vision of multilingualism, it's really important that you look at yourselves. So I cannot go anywhere and talk to anyone about languages without saying, look at yourself, be reflective of your own personality, your own views, or your own prejudices about languages. What's been your personal experience with language? Be aware of your own cultural lens, learn from diverse families, not about them, and be open to making mistakes. It's okay if you thought, that this community might be slightly backwards because they have that language, but be honest about it, because the way you approach that community will change. If you think Roma community, for example, so I know a lot of schools where I work with the Roma community is disengaged, but what's your view about Roma community? You don't see that they're strong, they've got strength in them, they've got strong social ties, they enjoy life. My Roma children are so happy at school. They don't come in on Monday, they don't come in on Friday, they don't come in when it rains, they don't come in for a wedding, they don't come in a lot of the times. But when they come in, they're confident and they're happy and they enjoy life and they make a lot of friends, they're very sociable. Those are strengths. Why are we not looking at the strengths and thinking that we can learn from that rather than looking at where they don't fit in? And so what messages are we giving out in school about their languages? I'm going to show you some things we do at my school. So we work a lot with families. We bring them into school. A lot of our families volunteer at school. We use something in our school. In our curriculum, I have put, to replace PFL, to replace MFL, we've created PFL, which means promoting first languages. So that just covers any language that comes into the school, because I hate somebody coming and thinking that they're not included. And for part of this, we use something called WALLOW. So WALLOW is called World's Old Languages of the World. John can take a bit of hand up, you can get some leaflets of him later. So this is a curriculum that's been devised. It's about all languages, how they're created, how languages work. And we put that across our whole school. So this is a workshop for families. They're learning about Sanskrit, Hindi, and Urdu, how that works. Year 4, 5, 6 children came to this lesson. We also did workshops in year 1 on sounds, so phonic sounds in different languages. The parents came in and did phonic sounds in different languages. We did measurements in year 3 with all the parents and creating rulers in different languages. So actually everything we learn can be transferable, and parents need to come in and say, actually, I can do this in my language. Yeah, my language isn't wasted. And what do parents think from this? What do they learn? After a long time, this is verbatim what parents said. After a long time, I'm seeing my language numbers. We speak daily Telugu, but never thought of telling our child the Telugu numbers. This is a thought-invoking session. How important it is to promote our first language. I understand now that my children don't know how to write in Romanian. I'll change it. And this is my favorite, the importance of celebrating and engaging a non-English languages spoken at home in the school curriculum, not just from an ideological perspective, but from an academic one. Fascinating to learn how children from multi-language backgrounds actually perform better in secondary level exams than those who identify as language children. So I work with a few academics with the latest research. They come to my school. We have a lot of research happening at my school, and I share with them the latest findings. So keeping parents, children, families constantly updated on how important their languages is so important. So we're all on this journey together. It's not about me and them, it's about all of us together, taking ownership of our languages and making sure that we make the best of it. There's an example of how we use languages in the classroom. As I said, we don't know which languages will turn up, we don't know all the languages. This is a boy who was attacked from Italy, but he spoke Bengali, Italian, Hindi, and Gujarati, and he was code switching throughout the interview with his family. So on his first day, he wrote in Italian, and we used Google Translate just to see what he was saying, see how he was accessing lessons. This is him 6 months later. So they were doing poetry, but he wrote his poem in Italian first, and then he wrote it in English. So what we find sometimes is that, especially with poetry, it's harder to write it in English if it's not your first language. So let them write. Why are we stopping them from learning? with their home language while they're trying to learn English. Another example how we use translanguaging and languages is a Tamil child. They were doing China Chocolate Factory because he had Tamil writing, translating it. And the second picture is actually a boy who joined as a Roma boy. He'd never been to school before. He joined us in year 4. So he didn't know how to hold a pen. He'd never written. So we're teaching him how to write in the classroom, hold a pen. This is without additional support. So when people see this, they think have extra TAs or magic fairies in the classroom helping us. This is just the teacher, first quality teaching in the classroom. So now this boy in year 6, he can access curriculum, but not obviously some of the high level vocabulary. But this is what he did. He translated it, drew what he understood, and the teacher highlighted some vocabulary. So he's joining in class in a meaningful way. This is a new child that came to us from from India. He spoke Sinhala. You can't actually Google Translate Sinhala. So I didn't have anybody that could do this. So he wrote the first day a story and then he drew it, which is a picture of a badminton. He did play badminton and there's an accident and then went to hospital. But you can see from this that this child is literate. He's clever. He's intelligent. He knows how to learn. So let him learn in his home language at year 6. Why we put them in a waiting room and say, wait until you can learn? They can learn. We can't control what they're doing. We don't know what they're doing with the translation wise. But if they're accessing learning, let them learn. Let them do inference. Let them do all these deeper thinking skills while they're accessing English and learning English. And this is pride in first languages. I don't like seeing languages at the back of the book like was previously. So I want it presented beautifully at the front of the book. So again, in some of the year 6s, they were doing glossaries in different languages. This child did it in Gujarati, I think, and in Arabic. Like, how amazing. And she challenged herself, this 2-year prefix, further research needed. She answered it herself. And I do feel there's a bit of coaching. So we need to, teachers panic that how can I know 50 languages? How can I know the 25 languages? I'm not saying you should know the languages. I'm not saying you need to translate for anything. I'm saying give the child the equipment, coach them, let them use their languages how they see fit, and let the child use all their language resource in the classroom. This is after school clubs in home languages. We have whoever can do an after school club in a language, we allow them to have parents that do Romanian club, Turkish club, Italian club, we have Tamil club, we have Bengali club, and Urdu club. And what is the most amazing thing with this? So when I started the after school clubs, I thought people are going to go to the heritage language, but that's not what happened. They all went to their friend's language. And that was the most heartwarming thing. So if you see here, and actually some children, so these 2 children here, they were in the Tamil club. There's a Romanian boy and an English-speaking girl. And the girl, Maya, her mum actually asked us for the Tamil words so she could teach her daughter as well. And they could learn Tamil together. And I found it much more of a social activity. Bengali club, the Romanian boy in the Bengali club, and Romanian club over here. There's a lot of Asian children that went to Romanian club. So I just think, actually, I didn't realise the children, they don't know. They don't care. They want to learn each other's. Right now in Urdu club, there's a little girl called Martha in year 1 who I teach sometimes when I cover a class. And she's learning Urdu, and Martha is Spanish and English. And she is, she was telling me her numbers the other day. She switched to Spanish. She went, oh, Miss Amin, I keep switching to Spanish and mixing my Spanish and Urdu. And I thought, well, what an amazing thing. That she is so flexible in her thinking and so adaptable. Your parents are encouraging her to learn other languages. And we set up our multilingual library. So using funding, we set up a library with over 200 books. There's over 45 languages here. Parents brought me books from their home countries. I've had books donated. I've been on the hunt for books. Staff bring me books. And some of the things the children say, the children run the library for me. The multilingual library has so many different languages and countries, and we learn new things. I love that so many languages, and we can practice our own language. The children come and hang out here at lunch and break time. They can't take it home. And they've created their own rules for this, and they're actually quite strict with the way children use books. I say, like, just relax a bit, people, please, because the library's messy, which means children are using it, so let them use it. But they bring out the damaged books, and they're constantly looking for any books that were missing and what languages are missing. And what's been interesting with the multilingual library is I'm not a librarian, so I just put continents at the beginning. So I just thought, I don't know how to organise this. So I put Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia. I put all the continent pictures, put language books in their groups. But actually, this has been great for children. Now they know where languages belong. They've got a globe there, and they're always researching, and there's lots of language experts now that teach everybody how to find a book. Is it being used? So having a whole school approach to multilingualism, what do you need? Our attitude, your mindset. What is your attitude to languaging? Make sure it's part of an approach. So do you have an approach as a school where you can embrace all languages and include them into your curriculum? Are you rewarding first languages? If a child's using a first language, are you recognising and rewarding it? Are you just ignoring it? Are you just giving it a nod? how you're responding to language, because that does make a big difference. Is it part of a routine in your school? And is it in the surroundings? When you walk in, when somebody walks in, can they see themselves in your school? I think that's really important. I get such emotional reactions from visitors when they come in, especially the library, when they see, oh, you won't have my book. And I'll be like, yeah, tell me your language. I'll pick out a Shona book. And they're like, oh my goodness, and they get emotional, they start crying and take pictures. And I think that's what language does. That's what language brings out in people. The impact of having a whole school approach to multilingualism. A child in year 4, going to a Romanian club, I feel so proud of where I'm from. It's made me so happy in school. And I think this boy changed his personality quite a bit because a lot of his friends wanted to come and learn Romanian. So the same thing, he felt really valued. 12 in year 6, I never knew that me having another language mattered. It's actually amazing what I can do in Italian. A parent from India, I thought you would tell us that we should be speaking English at home. I was really worried as I'm learning it too. Teaching her in Urdu, I can do. I'm still so relieved and proud that you'd recognise our language at school. I just wanted to share this little story with you. This is a little boy, because I'm showing this to you because there's a little clip of him in the video later. So this is him in year 4. He was attending our multilingual story time. I was running it with London Metropolitan University. And we were doing a multilingual story time. There's lots of visitors there reading stories. And he picked up the little book in Shona. And he said, when he shared, at the end, everyone's sharing the story. He said, oh, I found a poem that my mum sang to me when I was little. Now, we'd included a Shona book. We didn't know anybody spoke Shona. No one said that they spoke Shona at school. And then he sang this song for us in the most beautiful tone that made us all very, very teary-eyed. And then when his mum came to pick him up, she said to me, I don't know why Jonathan's coming to multilingual story time. You only speak English at home. And I said, well, actually, you speak Shona. And she's like, huh? How come you know I speak Shona? I said, because Jonathan found a book in Shona. And he just sang us a song that you sang to him as a baby. And the mum started crying. She came in, she took a photo of the book, and now he's learning Shona. That's in his book. There's a little video here I'd like to share with you, and you'll see Jonathan here a year later.
Good morning, make loud, hearing clever, hide and rise. When I go to the multilingual library, I normally go find this book and read it. I normally read it with my friend Phoebe, who is also a helper here. I've got a Korean book that I really want to read. It's just really life-changing for me. When I started it, I was really nervous. And now the multilingualism library is here. I can now show how good I am with my languages, and I'm not afraid to use them.
It's great because it gives you loads of opportunities to learn different languages. And you get to inspire to learn different languages as well. This place actually has inspired me to pursue and try and learn as many languages as I could. I want to learn Shona, Bengali, and Japanese.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. That was very inspiring. I invite Sabine to continue from the University of Sheffield. Hello. Yeah.
Thank you. So I know Sophia's work quite well, and knowing that we would both speak, I thought, right, some of the things that we do are the same. So what can I talk about that's hopefully still going to be a bit different and a bit inspiring? So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and talk about 4 different projects in the next 10-15 minutes, because I'm hoping the slides can be shared with people afterwards, because basically I've got a little taster and then links for anybody who wants to find out more. But what I wanted to try and do, so I am an ex-languages teacher. I'm German born and bred, moved to the UK when I was 18, originally trained as an opera singer, then a languages teacher teaching German and French, and now I'm an academic at the University of Sheffield. I have a bilingual son who's 17 now,
What I'm not talking about today, but if you're interested, we did a co-research project together with him as co-researcher and co-author about resurrecting his German. It was really good fun. So send me a message and I'll tell you more about it. But the way I thought I would talk about the different projects, I thought what combines them all, what brings them all together is that in my projects, I like to poke at traditionally monolingual or English spaces and prod and say, can we make them more multilingual? Can we integrate them into mainstream classrooms? Can we go into libraries and make something happen? So I've got a bunch of projects that I thought I would share with you. This particular activity was in a library. It was an activity I developed called Weaving Words of Welcome that we did for International Mother Language Day today, and it's on a website that I'm going to share later. So the concept, academic in me, I've got references, but only on this slide. The concept of physical and metaphorical space. Ramona asked me, could you talk a bit about sort of assessment, GCSE, etc.? And I'm thinking, well, actually, what does it mean if we want a GCSE in one of the home? It means we want space. We want the languages to be recognised amidst the other GCSEs that are available. So this comes from a social justice perspective, the right to take up space, whether that space is physical space, books on the library shelf, or whether it's metaphorical space in event organising. Why does a library not or do organise multilingual storytelling events, for example? Why are theatre productions in one language, in English, but not in other languages? Basically, it's about the right to take up multilingual space. And this is scalable from grassroots teacher activism. You can create that space in your everyday classroom, but also through citywide initiatives and major organisations. And my biggest moment of pride was that I got an activity of mine into World Book Day, which I'm going to say a little bit more about later. But that's where that image is coming from. I'm going to start very briefly talking about Lost Worlds, which is basically a repository of activity ideas aimed at encouraging classroom teachers to integrate multilingualism in the classroom, very much in the similar way to what Sophia was saying, not teaching specific languages, but giving pupils the opportunity to learn using all their languages. And I realise I'm preaching to the converted here, so I'm not going to go into the pedagogy behind it or anything, but just to say, when I talk to standard primary teachers, and I say things like, when you make them label something, how about, because we haven't got time to integrate other languages, when they're drawing a mini beast and they're labeling it, how about you take the extra 5 seconds to say, do that in any language that you speak. And that's the starting point. That sends a message of space, that the home language is welcome. And in this particular instance, this example is from a child who spoke Macedonian and Cantonese at home. And he then took it upon himself to do the French that he knew. And then he looked up the French that he didn't know in a dictionary. Doesn't show the whole picture. There's one mistake down there, but we're cool with that, aren't we? It's part of language exploration. So very, very briefly, the way the funding worked for that project meant that the activities are nature related. There was a book which people may or may not remember called Lost Words, which was about words, nature words that got dropped from the Oxford English Dictionary. And I piggybacked onto that, and because it was, we need to be able to use those words to maintain our links to nature. And multilingual children need to be able to use their home and heritage language so that they do not lose their world, and therefore the Lost Worlds project was forward. So that's the first one that I'm going to say very, and that still gets updated. Like I said, the very first activity that I shared, the Weaving Words of Welcome, that activity got added this February. Traditional tales untraditionally told. Piggybacks again on the idea of where is space? Where is the funding coming from? Do you know we've got a lot of funding at the moment? STEM. STEM gets a lot of funding. So I thought, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to combine STEM and multilingualism. And what we're going to do is we're going to encourage schools to work with children and their families to retell traditional tales in their home heritage language using makerspace pedagogy. So you've got makerspace is like this notion of problem-based learning, tinkering, stop motion animation, technology, etc. So you've got cardboard construction for creating background scenery. There's a green screen at the bottom there. There's stop motion animation to retell the story. There's a whole website there with lots of guides for teachers and lots of examples. Because of the speed at which I'm talking, I'm not going to share any of the films that were created, but they are all on the website. And just to briefly say, there's feedback here from teachers and parents. And you can see here again, if you look at the parent quote, we love Bangla and it's wonderful being able to use our mother tongue in the library. That's a space thing. Our language is welcome here. We can use that space for all our languages. Moving on to multilingual libraries. Before COVID, in those days, I worked with Sheffield Central Libraries to set up a multilingual children's library. It won an award. It won the International Brenda Eastwood Award for Diversity and Inclusion. And I'm still dining out on that. Because that opens doors. As soon as you win an award or something, it opens doors and you can shout about it. The Multilingual Children's Library was created on very, very, very little funding. I mean, it sounds basically it was about £8,000, and most of that went on a graphic designer, a children's illustrator who created the representation of multilingual children reading. Those are all freely available on the project website. So if you go to there, you can find the whole host of downloadable graphics that you can use at your heart's content. And I have started a little newsletter for those interested in setting up a multilingual children's library. I now get, I would say, roughly 2 emails a month, maybe, from people who say, I hear you do multilingual libraries. Can you help me set one up for our school? And I say, yes, of course I can. How are we going to do, how are we going to do this? So again, it's this notion of space. There's a quote from a parent here at the bottom. In some ways, it makes you feel more like you belong, because you think, well, the library has a section with books in different languages for people that are living in Sheffield. In some ways, I think it makes you feel, at least in my case, I feel like I belong more, because, there is this the background property. There's, I think for this slide, I have. For those who are interested, there is research with publications and everything. So there's lots more quotes embedded in those two journal articles from librarians. Sophia said a lovely thing about the space is messy and therefore it means it's being used. That came out of my study as well. But very, very quickly, one of the things that came out and that I'm pulling up in that top article there is that traditional measures of success do not work for multilingual libraries, because traditional measures of success for a library are books being taken out of the building. Footfall through the door is one thing, and books being issued is another thing. But what the research found on this one is that multilingual parents didn't take the books out of the library. And they had two very specific reasons for that. On the one hand, they knew that the service, there were fewer of them than in other languages. So by taking them, they were very much aware they were removing the opportunity from other multilingual parents. That was one. And the other, if they take the book home, it just becomes another home language at home. And what they wanted, coming back to the space, was the home language in the public library. And for both of those reasons together, the parents were much more likely to read the book in the library and then put it back on the shelf and leave, which means they didn't enter the library. So it was, those books aren't being read. And the librarians went, but the space is always messy. So they are definitely what's going on here. So it actually did take the research to say, hang on, the way we are looking at traditionally monolingual spaces, even like libraries, doesn't work. We need new ways of thinking about success in those spaces. And then finally, is it finally? Might be finally. Rivers of multilingual reading. I loved doing this research study, and I still get to do lots of work with children in schools on this. The idea behind a river of multilingual reading is that you encourage a child to think back to as early as possible and create an artifact of the reading that they consider important, not favourites, important. What have you read throughout your childhood up until this point, and what of this is important? And you can see two very, very, very different rivers of reading here. This one, in the study I called him Liam, was a Hebrew speaker. And he had lots of different colour boats. And I'll get the colours wrong, but I think orange boats were Hebrew books, I think. And then other books were non-fiction books, adventure books, etc. I said, okay, so if adventure books are yellow and Hebrew books are orange, what colour is a Hebrew adventure book? No, that's orange. Okay, so what about a Hebrew non-fiction book? No, that's orange. So when we first started talking to each other, the fact that the book was in Hebrew trumped everything, and that was because he hated Hebrew. And he hated reading in Hebrew because every time he hit a certain level, his dad would give him a harder book. So he was constantly scrabbling, and he never had a chance to read for pleasure. And what came out of the research study, right at the very, very end, there is a book that is in Hebrew, and it's not orange, and it's a picture book, because he read it to his little sister. And he grasped the language perfectly, and he got positioned as the speaker of the language, the one who was passing it on. And there was no pressure on him to get better and better and better. He could just use the language. And so the rivers of reading help children think about what the different bits of reading mean to them. The one on the right, very quickly, I just wanted to show the line in the middle. I didn't ask to do this line. This was from a girl. It goes on either side. These were sides of A4 taped together. And this girl moved to Sheffield at the age of 8 from Spain. And then she introduced this line, and her Spanish books were on the left, and her English books were on the right. And she was very, very outspoken about what books were important. And it was the first book she read after arriving in Sheffield. The book that introduced her to what brownies are. And then 2 years later, she would go to brownies. So introduction to culture, etc. But about 2 pages further on, the line disappears. So I said to her in an interview, where'd the line go? What happened there? And she went, oh, I didn't realise I did that. And then she reflected and she said, I think at that point I wasn't thinking about the language anymore, and I was just thinking about the reading. So when multilingual children think about their reading, or are invited to think about reading, it opens up their perception of their multilingualism, and they think about why reading is important. And what I found in my research is that multilingual children think about reading in different ways. Reading is important for different reasons to monolingual children. And so one day, hold on my big girl pants, and I wrote to World Book Day bravely, and I went, hi, I have a reputation for this. How would you like to diversify your offer and introduce linguistic diversity into World Book Day? And I thought it'd be one of those emails that you write and nothing ever happens. And they wrote back and said, oh, yes, we can see you've done a number of things, you're a beautiful person. Can you help develop us something? So my little research project ended up being one of the core activities that went into every school and every library in the country this World Book Day in 2025. And this is feedback from a Year 5 teacher who got in touch afterwards, helped us, so this is from a mainstream school, helped us to understand what reading looks like for our children on a day-to-day basis. I don't think we ever considered children's reading on this scale before, although we tell them that being multilingual is great, of course. I've done another study which is called basically the idea of yes, being multilingual is great, but we don't really know what to do about it. So we tell children that being multilingual is great. But to have all their languages in one river of reading helped to integrate our thinking from the school's perspective about literacy development and sent a signal that all languages are welcome in school. Space. Links. Research. And then finally, all those little bits about taking up space. And I'm very glad actually that Claire Allison is here today as well, because yesterday, we launched the Sheffield City of Languages initiative. I've only got the one slide on it, just fly a big flag, because Claire has been working on assessing home heritage community languages, and she works at the National Consortium. And we launched this yesterday, and part of this is about the taking up space. And because I've been working with the library, when I went to them and I said, look, we want to do this initiative. We've been working together before. Can you make some space? Can you do this? We both work with the council in different ways. So when we asked the council, so what that ultimately led to was bringing all the different bits where we poked and prodded over the years to create that bit of space together to do this City of Languages initiative. So I think what I'm basically trying to say is I have found it really successful to, when you nudge people and you want something from them, to talk about space. Who owns this space? Whether it's a real or metaphorical space. And can we make space for? Are there ways in which we can integrate space for multilingual learners? And sometimes that works very consciously, and sometimes that works very surreptitiously. I did have a pun about space invaders here somewhere, but I took it out again because invader doesn't sound very positive. So I'm sorry about the whistle-stop-tour. My email address is there, and if anybody would like to follow up on any of these things, please get in touch. Thank you.
Very interesting. We'll continue with Sophie, if you want to come. So Dr. Sophie Higgins is an ESRC postdoctoral fellow at the University of Essex and an MFL teacher at Walthamstow School for Girls.
Opening now. Say hello. Yeah. I feel I need to disclose that everything has been so lovely and beautiful today. I'm so proud of you, particularly speaking. And this is very factual, just as a warning. It's very data-y and factual. Not to say that there's not a need for it, because there definitely is. But I'm feeling that I might just bring things a little bit too data-y right now, so just be prepared. Right, okay. So I'm Sophie. I'll go straight into what I'm going to say. I'm just presenting some of the results from a piece of work that I did last year as part of my postdoc at Essex, which involved designing a questionnaire about heritage language students' competencies and usage of their heritage language. Okay, so I'll jump right in because you'll see more about how the questionnaire sort of works as it goes on. I'm going to quickly look at the sort of context in which I've designed this and explain the study aims and design. The first part of the study just looks at identification, self-identification as heritage language speakers, and we'll look a little bit at the discrepancies between the Department for Education figures and the figures that came out of this survey. And then, particularly when thinking about a questionnaire that looks at students' competencies, the point of that is kind of to get a better idea behind the label of EAL. As we can see, like we talked about a lot today, that the label of EAL is a category that encompasses a huge range of competencies and languages, of course. And then I'm going to look a little bit at the factors that came out in the questionnaire that seem to impact on the competency. And by competency, I mean 4 skills: reading, writing, speaking this. Okay, so as we know, the proportion of young people recorded as EAL is rising. And with that, I mean, not enough, but the educational benefits of multilingual approaches are becoming more widely accepted, and alongside culturally sustaining pedagogies becoming talked about more in schools, at the minimum at least, we acknowledge that students should be seeing themselves in the curriculum, whether they are always or not. It's definitely, teachers agree. And then adolescent years are, we know, critical for identity formation, but alongside that comes the concern that children of school age are most prone to language attrition or non-maintenance of the heritage language. There's lots of work on this on family language policy, but what this work looks at is the role of education, particularly in secondary, in the maintenance and development of heritage languages. And I'm a modern foreign language teacher by trade, and then into EAL coordinator, and then I've done my PhD on adolescent bilingualism and maintenance of heritage languages. And I think the biggest problem I see currently in schools is that where we are as teachers, we're all responsible for language development. How much is that limited to English language development? Again, we can talk about that for a long time. But also, while EAL isn't a subject-specific, a curriculum subject, we don't have standards, we don't have an official curriculum to work with. So we have to work hard to kind of work out what it is that we should be doing to support multilingual approaches. And so this project kind of aims to look at what is it's like a tool to look at what is behind the category of EAL. Okay. So like I said, the idea is to provide a clear review on what's behind the EAL label, to consider what factors impact heritage language competence, and think about how data like this can inform practices and policy in language education. So here's the questionnaire. I'm trying to explain it really quickly, but it's not very quick. It's like, the first part is the biographical information. So it's mainly linguistic biography. So things like who speaks your other language in your household, but also questions like, when did you first study? I've said language other than English, again, to avoid the label of birth language, heritage language, just to avoid confusion, because it's done with students between 11 and 16. The second part is about competency. So it's questions such as, I can read short sentences in my own language, to I can change my register according to my audience. So there's a huge range. And then the third part is about usage, and so how dominant the heritage language is in the everyday lives of students, so how much they use it. And then part 4 is an attitudes questionnaire. So for example, I identify with the culture of my other language, strongly agree to, strongly or disagree, and that's where we might look at factors that might impact on competencies. Okay, so the first, when I've carried out the questionnaire, I've done it with 522 students across 3 schools in London. There's a higher proportion of female respondents because one school was a girls' school. And then I think I'll just quickly go through. The most important thing I want you to have a look at is that the majority of the sample were born in the UK, and the majority of parents are not born in the UK. And so that's kind of, the focus is on students who aren't necessarily new to English, but speak a language other than English at home, which is more typical of the EAL category, but often not seen in school. It was administered in 30-minute sessions, so I went into schools and did it through MFL lessons or IT lessons just on computers. And I suppose the important thing here is that I spoke to every group and just explained the concept of bilingualism, not as you can speak 2 languages equally, like just making sure that they understood that the concept of bilingualism was that you know or have contact with a language other than English in your community, family, or just in general life. So it's a wide kind of accurate representation of bilingualism. Okay, so the first finding that I think is important is basically just who identifies as a heritage language speaker. The 3 schools were in 2 boroughs. the average of the two boroughs reported by the Department for Education is 40% EAL, the proportion of students about 40% EAL. And what I wanted to look at was how that compares with the amount of students that say yes to the question, do you know a language other than English at home, in your family or community? And in all of the schools, it was at least 20% more than the recorded percentage of EAL students in that borough, just indicating this sort of large discrepancy between what we assume or what we are told maybe as teachers or leaders in a borough is probably misrepresented because of the fact that a lot of the time in secondary, the EAL data is passed on from primary, but also there are quite a lot of barriers, as we can talk about for longer, to identifying as a student that speaks a language other than English. But these students were directly asked, do you speak a language other than English? Of course, when I'm talking about bilingualism, they see it as a positive thing. And they wanted to say, yes, oh yes, I do speak a little bit of that, and so students were much more willing to yes, identify as a heritage language speaker. Okay, and then in terms of actually what the competencies look like, so it's all self-reported. Of course, we can't do objective linguistic tests with the amount of languages that are going to come up in a sample of 500 students. So it's self-reported, so it's just students to start saying where they think they are on these skills. So when we zoom in on the 352 students that did identify as heritage language speakers, there were 69 languages reported in 352 students. And so to think about the fact that in a nationwide census, there's 95 languages, I think, again, it kind of points to an underrepresentation of the linguistic diversity of the country, because in 500 students, we've got 69 languages being reported. I mean, and you'll see, I've written them up. You'll probably notice some and think, what language category is that? For example, I think someone wrote Ghanaian. This is their categories that they have put. And so I haven't changed them or categorized them. They're just the languages that students say they speak. And they're the top 10 languages, but as you can see, very high, wide variety of languages. And then in terms of how they report the competencies, as we would imagine with heritage language speakers, the comprehension and speaking levels were the strongest suit, and really strong, in fact. So if they answered 2, for example, that would be, I can do this quite well. So the mean average of the comprehension was 2.74. So that's somewhere between I can do this quite well and do this very well. The same for the speaking. The reading was obviously lower, and so was the writing, but still there's quite a significant, quite a good level of skill there that I think is worth noting. Of course, these are averages, so over all of those languages. Okay. And again, these are just sort of some of the skills. So these are the skills that I asked about. So like manipulating writing style, to being able to tell when the language is spoken, understand some sentences. And of course, understanding slow speech, counting to 10, they're going to be the ones where the competencies are higher. Reading a newspaper, and that top one was writing a story. Writing a short message was kind of in the middle, but what I thought was interesting was that telephone conversations and jokes were quite high. And I think that's really important when thinking about the differences between a second language learner, for example. Telephone is like the most frightening thing you can do. As a heritage language speaker, you've got much different experiences. And so that was the competencies and that was higher, sort of showing, the different journey, of course, that a heritage language speaker would take on their language development. And then the dominance, again, I think is quite high. So on average, students would say about 40% of their life was carried out in the heritage language. Now, that's not a statement I can say. That sounds like you can't ask someone really to quantify it. It's just an idea. So like this, for example, which languages do you use to talk about school and education? It's very hard to say, oh, I do 50% this and 50% that. It depends on the person you're speaking to. But it's just an idea. It's just a rough idea to kind of see what the dominance is really. Again, so these are all the different domains that I asked about. So talking about school, talking about health, expressing feelings, singing to yourself. I think talking to pets is in there, which is an interesting one sometimes, watching television. And again, like things like religion, food, home, distant family, praying, or higher. But writing at school, reading, maths, and extracurricular were all more higher in English than the heritage language. Again, as we would expect. But I think it's important to have this kind of thing documented, especially in terms of thinking about developing competencies for examination, because you would think this is where we kind of need to have a think about changing that and impacting in a different way, that reading and maths and extracurricular activities are so dominantly English. Okay, and then the factors that impact on competencies. I split these up into biographical factors that can't be changed by policy. So where someone's born, where parents are born, the language that they speak, into practice factors, language practice factors that could inform school and family language policies. So household speaking, we talked about it today quite a lot, like how much that can be encouraged. The age at which a child starts reading in the heritage language school attendance and attitudes. These are things that can be influenced by mindsets, actions. And the most significant factor in language biography, clearly where you're born, because if you were born in the country that speaks the language, then you're going to have higher competency. But things that like how many years of schooling came up, where your parents were born, the category of the language, which again I think is another presentation, or it's part of the conversation, but it's about language hierarchy and status. That's all there and harder to change. But in terms of the language practice factors that seem to impact most on the competencies, at what age you started to read in your other language is there as the most significant factor. The dominance total, so how much you use it, of course. And then the identification with the culture of the other language, which just confirms loads of the stuff that we've been talking about today, I think. But I think it's nice to have it in some kind of wide questionnaire that a lot of students can respond to. Okay, so in conclusion, as we can see, there's wide discrepancies in the census data. So the ideas that we have from the Department of Education and self-report survey data like this. And that's about identification as heritage language speakers or someone who has a linguistically diverse repertoire. There's a wide range of languages, competencies and dominance, which we would all imagine. The mean averages are considerably high. There was a high lot of competency in the languages that are talked about in the questionnaire. And then, as I've just said about the fact and then implications for practice and policy. I think something like this on a wider scale would be really useful to amend these kinds of discrepancies and get a better picture of the linguistic capital that we have in England, the UK, and important for preparing and entering for community language GCSE. The Global Future report, which you probably know about more, says that the current entry is 30,000 students a year, but we can see that there's 137,000 students in year 11 alone, yearly. So the gap is clearly gigantic. And of course, we have to take into consideration the language categories and the competencies, but there's a clearly potential for more. I think things like this can give us a bit more of an insight into which language groups need more encouragement. My previous research highlights certain language categories that are subject to more prejudice, and then from the students' kind of responses in big case studies that I've done, there's quite a lot of resistance sometimes, and so these kind of questionnaires can highlight that. And then things we talked about again today, communicating with home communities. When we're looking at multilingual resources, having a good idea of what the competencies in our schools are, or nationally what they are, it will inform resources, language engagement, linguistic landscapes. And just generally by understanding the kind of the roots of our education environments, like what there is, what we have behind that wide category of EAL, we're feeling better equipped to help multilingualism flourish, just have a better idea of what's really going on there, beyond just knowing about English, which is usually the focus. So that's
So can we move on to Vicky? So Vicky McLeroy is a professor of language and literacy, head of MA Children's Literature Program, and head of the Center for Languages, Cultures and Learning at Goldsmith. Let me just.
Thank you. I'm going to talk to you about the Critical Connections project, which I think quite a few of you may have already heard about. We have a teacher's handbook here that was created with teachers almost 10 years ago now, but it was all of our work is in very, very close collaboration with teachers, and it's become a project that started off small and just has expanded and expanded. You can get all of these resources I'm talking about on our Critical Connections website that I'll put up at the end. Most of my talk today as well will be sharing 3 short digital stories, and so hopefully we'll get a chance to listen to the languages that we've been talking about today, because they're all in Bulgarian, Portuguese, Spanish, and we'll be thinking, and also some home heritage languages as well. And so they're just 3-minute short films that we'll be looking at. So my talk today is framing a multilingual approach to filmmaking. The photographs here are taken by the students themselves, and the project is about digital storytelling. So that's a Bulgarian complementary school. This is a mainstream primary school. And then I'm also going to be talking about a Portuguese complementary school. So it's really lovely to have Jessica Rebelo here, who was working with the school last year on the project. So the Critical Connections project has expanded. Over 2,500 children, 50 lead educators, primary, secondary, complementary schools. We work with 17 countries across the world, and we have worked in 44 languages. Jim Anderson has just recently retired, so there are now 3 co-directors. So there is Yu Chao Chung, who's based in Taiwan, and there's Judith Reiferser, who's now based in Italy, but she's also chair of the Association for Language Learning in this country. We've been funded by lots of different people, but mainly by the Paul Hamlin Foundation, who really think about outreach work. So this project started because we wanted to reconnect teenagers with language learning, and we wanted to think of ways to do it creatively and critically. And we wanted people to use digital technology in creative ways. So what happens when young people pick up cameras and go outside? So we claim that a digital story can do all of these things. It can make or help students to think about metalinguistic awareness. It's about communication. It's interdisciplinary. It's all about project-based language learning. There's learner agency there. It's about social justice because of the themes that we choose. It's about different ways, multiple ways of knowing. It's about multiple sites of learning. So that's really important to us, that children are learning in school, in the community, online, offline. And it's also about transformative pedagogy. So it's often about teachers stepping back and not interfering and allowing students to take the floor. We have quite a staged approach to filmmaking. Filmmaking is not easy if you're doing it for the first time. You've got to work towards deadlines. You're working towards a big film festival where you show your films to over 200 people in person and people around the world. So you're proud of the film that you make, and it takes time to do it. So story is really important. Ideas are really important. Children's literature, I'm really glad has come up lots of times today, and reading for pleasure, that's important. But often children choose to make documentaries, especially when they're teenagers. It's also about choosing the digital tools. So it's about thinking about what kinds of props you need, where you're going to locate the film. It's about editing, it's about subtitling, and it's about presenting at a film festival. So the children get up and they present for a minute at the film festival. It's also we've shown from research, it does these things. And so people have used it to prepare students for GCSEs and for exams. We don't assess the digital stories. They enable students to then do well in other forms of their learning. It enables them to apply for university because they say they're filmmakers. We've done these films. They go to their interviews at university very, very confident. So it's about vocabulary development, oracy, multiliteracy skills, creative, critical thinking, student-centered. Very much, I come from a theatre and education media background, so it's about drama as well. It's about poetry. And I also used to teach creative writing for a long time. Recently comic writing, so those things come into the films as well. And it's also challenging, it's hard. So teachers work with us, some teachers have been with us for 13 years, but they learn a lot. They become skilled filmmakers as well. They learn how to edit, they do things the hard way. But I really like this quote from one of the teachers who says, "I can't imagine any other project stimulating so many aspects of the young learner." And they talk about digital skills and also about getting ready for the 21st century. It's also about becoming a multilingual activist. So I'm really pleased that people have been talking about multilingualism and also thinking about students as multilinguals. So these, I'm not going to read them all out, but I think seeing schools as well as a stepping off point to provide resources and structures is really important here. So I'm going to turn now to the digital stories themselves. And I want you as an audience now, I want you to be active viewers of these digital stories. So this is something that we always get our students to do at the beginning of every year. They watch 3 digital stories and they decide themselves what makes a good digital story. So as you're watching these 3 digital stories, I want you to think about the language in them. I want you to think of the culture and how it's represented. I want you to think about the kind of genre. I want you to think about the sets, the props, the cinematography, the camera angles. I want you to think about whether these digital stories are engaging, whether as an audience you enjoy watching them. And I want you, at the end of watching this first film you're going to watch, I want you to think about a striking line from this film that you've enjoyed. So this is from the Bulgarian Complementary School. The lead teacher was Milena Vesinkova. It was with a small group of students, 10 to 14-year-olds, and they called it Question Mark Movie. This is from the poster that they created on this side, and they said the students in the movie want to emphasize that even though they are surrounded by numbers and ways to divide them into groups daily, at the end of the day, they're just kids. The film ends with a powerful message. Adults, please remember, we are not numbers, we are only kids. This is the 10 to 14-year-olds. I'm just going to play that. Yeah, you know.
Александър съм на 12 години. Английското ми училище съм в 7 клас, а в българското ми училище съм в 6 клас. Майка ми е на 35, а баща ми на 40. Имам един брат и една сестра. Имам братовчеди, едно момче и 2 момичета. Имам 2 ниво по пеене и 5 по пиано. Говоря 3 езика. Понякога ми се струва да цифра заобиколена от други такива. Възрастните просто ни засипват статистика и постоянно ти трябва да правиш така и ти не трябва да правиш така. Цифри, цифри, цифри. Главата ми не ги побира просто. В единия ми клас има 28 деца, в другия 15. Още от 6 националности. 20 момичета и 23 момчета. 50% от тях са ми добри приятели. Другите не чак толкова. 7 от тях харесват музика, но родителите им са решили, че те не просто ще харесват музика, а ще станат велики музиканти. Трябва да се упражняват и да ходят на уроци 2 пъти в седмица. 4 деца обичат да спортуват по 3 пъти в седмица да ходят на спортни клубове. 4 от моите приятели живеят в ритъма на танц. Такт 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Знаят 20 различни сложни стъпки. 7 момичета ще стават художнички. В седмицата трябва да нарисуват по 7 картини, за да ги приемат в арт-училище, което е първото в страната. Всички имаме смарт телефон, iPhone 6, 7 или модел 34506709 или 12386550. Цифри, цифри, цифри. Трябва да ядем по 5 пълна ден сме здрави. Трябва да пием поне 5 чаши вода сме хидратирани. Трябва да ставаме в 7, за да не закъснем. Трябва да се лягаме в 9 часа, да се починем добре. Трябва да четем по 20 минути на ден, за да не ни правят забележка. А колко време на ден трябва да играем? Едно всеки 3 деца е било жертва на насилие в училище. Едно всеки 10 деца е имало инцидент в училище по време на игра. 5 от тях никога не са казали на родителите си това. Ох, има още много цифри. Номера на паспорта ми е 759864. Здравният ми номер е 986 / 45. Имам детска дебетна карта, дълъг номер. Дата на изтичане и security номер. Да, щях да забравя. Обувките ми са номер 5. Номера на дрехите ми са 38. Колко цифри има прикачени към мен?
I'm sorry, I forgot to say that we have a different theme for the film project every year, and so it felt very apt that it was belonging, and that's what the students decided to make their film about when they were asked to make a film about belonging. They did all the filming, they did all the subtitling, and when I interviewed them, they talked about thinking about it was almost the first time that they'd thought about their languages in that way and having to work together with them. So the next film, so hold in your head that striking line. The next film I'm going to show, it's younger students that we've been talking about, but we have been talking about how do we bring in heritage languages into the mainstream classroom. So it fits really nicely with creating spaces for languages. And it's also, this is with, it's in a mainstream school, but it's a bilingual school. So the students are learning in Spanish and English, French and English, or German and English. This is the Spanish and English side, but they're also bringing in their heritage languages with the teacher. The teacher has a background, again, in drama, in poetry. These are young students, 8 to 9-year-olds, but they've never shared their home heritage languages together before. And what's lovely about this is they use artwork, they use poetry, and I love this, our roots twisting like magic through languages. So this, the theme was our planet. They decided to write about roots. This is another 3-minute film. So as you watch this, think about the metaphors they're using to talk about their languages and to talk about their roots.
Ayudándonos a respirar. Las raíces son gusanos que se retuercen. Se retuercen bajo tierra, tan antiguos como el tiempo. Como una tierra que se filtra por el subsuelo conectando cosas. Las raíces son como túneles bajo la tierra. Se espian hacia afuera. Nuestras raíces son fuertes. Nuestras raíces se retuercen como por arte de magia a través de las lenguas. Las raíces son la eterna cara de una criatura desconocida y se experimenta por nuestras raíces. Están repartidos por todo el mundo. India, Brasil, Palestina, Argentina, Chile, Canadá, Italia, Francia. Las raíces se pepean conectándonos a través de nuestros Slovakianista. Then sits down and wants to meet the king. Yudnasha says, я вижу тебя. Неси пироги бабушке. I see you, bring the cakes to grandma. Raíces tan retorcidas como la magia. Raíces son profundas en esta planeta nuestro. Muchos árboles. Todo el mundo tiene que cuidar las raíces. Nuestros talentos y nuestros árboles.
And finally, last year we had the theme of care, community and hope. And so it is really lovely to have this representation from the Club dos Brasileirinhos and Jessica here, who was one of the lead teachers. So this is 12 to 17-year-olds. It was in a Portuguese complementary school. And it really gives us insight into how these teenagers view the school. So the narrative is through the lens of these. They wanted to take you on a journey. I won't be able to show you the whole of this film because it's slightly long. I'm just going to show you a few minutes. But I think it's really, they say, join us in celebrating a community where culture and language thrive in every interaction. I think something rather wonderfully multimodal about films is the music as well. And so the music in this one immediately takes you into the culture of Brazil.
É só isso, meu baião, e não tem mais nada não. O meu coração pediu assim, só tem.
Typical Brazilian, it was sport open to all children from 2 to 15 who want to learn or expand their knowledge of the Portuguese language as their home language and Brazilian culture. We learn Portuguese in a fun and captivating way. Here at Ruby, we can feel welcome by increasing our love and appreciation for Brazil. We participate in activities that enrich our pride in being Brazilian, such as Festa Junina, Carnaval, End of Year Party, theatre, science, storytelling, and capoeira. We enjoy the opportunities that are provided with other organizations. We feel welcome by these activities because we are heard and we want to express our emotions in Portuguese. We don't just speak Portuguese, we exist in Portuguese. We work with charities to expand our reach into the Brazilian community, where children can feel welcome and cared for. Our parents hope we can keep our heritage alive. We have a desire to learn, and we hope that the program grows so that other Brazilians have the opportunity to learn Portuguese fluently.
Oi, meu nome é Miguel. Eu tenho 15 anos, eu estou no clube mais de 10 anos. Para mim, o clube é uma família, é uma comunidade que eu sente seguro, eu tenho muitos amigos, eu consigo aprender português, a cultura e a história do nosso país.
Para mim, o Clube dos Brasileiros é uma comunidade porque eu me sinto bem-vinda e bem contente aprendendo português e ampliando meu vocabulário também, enquanto eu socializando com outras crianças brasileiras. Estou aqui por uns 6, 7 anos e o clube, para mim, parece já uma família, porque já passei vários sábados aqui estudando e conversando com novas crianças e aprendendo várias coisas da cultura brasileira com novos professores. Eu fiz muitos amigos legais no clube.
Yeah, sorry to stop it early there because I think you guys have beautifully made film that as well and really kind of through the eyes of the students. So these are a few things that you might have drawn out from the different films, but with Question Mark Movie, the students discussed all their ideas in Bulgarian, they improvised the scenes, they edited the film, they wrote the film script, voiceover, and then they translated the script into English. So they had to think really carefully about how the subtitles worked and step by step. And these are 10 to 14-year-olds, like working really closely with that. With the Linguistic Raising, they kind of found out that there were these 26 countries that belonged to their classroom and the roots and stories. We don't just speak Portuguese, we exist in Portuguese. I love it the way they talk about they did a deep dive into their rich Brazilian culture, and it was a journey seen through the eyes of the students, a collective endeavour. And this is in their words, each frame a testament that they do more than just speak Portuguese. And so I kind of think we've been touching on that all the way through today and about kind of the importance of why and the purpose for the students speaking their heritage, home and community languages. And that I think this filmmaking gives them an authentic place to create their, to use their languages and to celebrate them in film festivals. So I'm going to conclude there, and those are just the kind of the website resources and the teacher's handbook and online workshops. But anyone who's interested in filmmaking, do come and talk to me because we're always looking for new schools or new people interested in the project. Thank you.
What we initially planned, but I kind of open it for discussion, is to form 4 groups, like divide the room in 4 corners and have group conversations. Before I do that, I'm going to do the following. I'll share the document that we planned on using.
So about in 2011, I live in Sheffield, and I set up the Home Languages Accreditation Project in a secondary school. And we started small because I think a lot of projects should start. Small. And we literally, I think, just did 2 languages working with 2 schools. I think we had Arabic and we did another language doing the GCSE. But the biggest barrier, is to getting the GCSE or the A-Level is the speaking exam. Someone to come and do the speaking exam is the big problem or the barrier. So basically, I trained up a group of people. Long story short, this year we work with 53 schools now across Yorkshire in 17 languages, and we support, I think we're currently organising 400 speaking exams, something like that. So yeah, so we do it in different ways. So basically, there's different models around the country. So what happens in Sheffield is there's one school that's kind of like the host school, and a lot of the exams take place between 4 and 6 o'clock when the classrooms are quiet, and we do the exams then, and we do 3, 4, 5 times a night at the same time. We run invigilation rooms, and we do and people pay a fee, and they've always paid a fee. Even when we were funded at the beginning, people pay a fee. And I know it sounds counterintuitive in a way. Actually, by getting used to paying, when the funding stopped, they're still paying. Actually, to be honest with you, 40 quid for a GC speaking exam, you're not paying for a teacher for 2 years. You're not, you know what I mean? And you're going to get some huge benefits, not just for the young person, but for the school as well. And that's really
important. And the accreditation is recognised by...
So that's the GCSE and A-Level. We do A-Levels as well, where they're speaking exams. So then I also work for the National Consortium for Language Education at UCL. I'm the Home Heritage Community Languages officer. So that's got the reach across England. So we're looking at all different things. I've talked to a couple of people here today. So not just GCSE and A-Level, but obviously talking really interesting in your project you've done around Bulgarian and Albanian, Ukrainian, because that's definitely something we need to really think about. And I'd like to try and do some of those projects around the country involving those languages. Where there isn't a GCSE and A-Level. But there's also the ASDAN short languages course. I don't know if anyone's tried that or done that. Have you got experience of doing that? How did...
So we originally did it with the SEN kids a few years ago. And we want to bring back some aspects of it, the short ones, the cope, the food-wise. It's quite a good practical course.
So it's basically a portfolio course. It's a level 1, I have to say accreditation, not qualification, as Dan told me off the saying. It's an accreditation. And it can be done in any language. So it just says, in your language, do this task. In your language, do that task. It's all kind of themed, and they pick so many topics to do out of the booklet. What we did in Sheffield was basically, we did it through the heritage schools as well. So we did it with the Kurdish school, wrote some lesson plans, help them to develop and deliver those lessons, to deliver the portfolio. And that's just one thing we did around trying to sort of find places for the language to be recognised where there wasn't a qualification.
Do you have a website for that, just to show? Is that
yeah, it's on the ALL website. Yeah,
this one.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of a key. That is me, but I'm not actually doing it. My wonderful colleague Ottilie has just taken on the job of doing all the speaking exams. She's doing a fabulous job. So I can work on the national. Yeah, I can give you that. So that's that, and it's still going strong.